Saying that.
Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to the May 14th, 2024 meeting of the Calvert County Board of Commissioners. At this time, I'd like to ask Pastor Darrell Brown if he would come forward and give us an invocation.
Gracious God, we say thank you because this is the day that you have made and we shall rejoice and be glad in it. We thank you for your grace and your kindness and your mercy towards us. God, today we acknowledge you as the supreme authority, but we thank you because you have given us grace to rule and to govern. I pray that today that your spirit of knowledge, your spirit of wisdom and understanding would be in this room, that most of all there would be peace, there would be unity, and there will be understanding as we serve this great community. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'd like to thank Pastor Brown for coming in and give us an invocation. And Pastor Brown comes to us from Greater Bible Way Church here in Prince Redick. So thank you, Pastor Brown. Next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Are there any corrections or additions to the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Have a motion and a second that we approve the agenda. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I do have a few public service announcements today. It is primary election day. If you have not voted, please vote. It's very, very important. Many of our students have died to give you the right to vote. You should not take that for granted. You should get out and vote. Also, this coming Thursday night, May 16th, 7 p.m. here in the Commissioners' Hearing Room, we're going to have a public hearing for the FY 2025 Commissioners' Budget. You can follow on YouTube. You can come in person and give comments. You can also be online. You can view it at www.calvertcountymaryland.gov/budget. You can go to the public library, get a hard copy. We ask that anyone who's interested, excuse me, please come out and participate. We'd like to hear your comments about the budget. It's been a challenging year. This budget is not easy or been any fun. So we ask that you all participate in that process as much as you can. Also, I want to recognize it's National Police Week. We live in a very safe community here in Calvert County, and that's due to the work of our officers. So if you see an officer at any time, not just this week, but any time you see an officer in Calvert County, please thank them for their service. And also, it's EMS Appreciation Week. Most of you know that here in Calvert County, we have a very large volunteer service. Our fire service is 100% volunteer. Our EMS service is partially volunteer and partially paid. So we want to extend our appreciation to especially the volunteers for their services and the paid career staff for what they do for our citizens. Also, on this Saturday, May 18th, it's Armed Forces Day, and that's always the third Saturday in May. I want to recognize the immense challenges and hardships that our military members and families face during their lives, and want to thank them for their service, and especially the impact that it has on families. We talk about the military and the active duty individuals, but there's a significant impact to their families that they leave behind. So we always want to remember the families. That concludes my public service announcements for today. That will take us into proclamations. Our first proclamation is for Calvert County Older Americans Month. Commissioner Grasso.
Could I ask Ed Sullivan to come up to the microphone, tell us a little bit about yourself, and anybody you have with you, please have them come up as well.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. Ed Sullivan, Division Chief of the Calvert County Office on Aging. We do have a number of seniors here with us who serve our community at our 3 senior centers, and also beyond our 3 senior centers. Our president of the Calvert County Commission on Aging is also with us today, Reverend Charles Harrell. Going to have him say a few words if it's okay with you. I am going to ask, as you have requested, Commissioner Grasso, if the seniors in attendance will come up and join me and certainly introduce themselves, that would be wonderful. So
is Sue Toole, and I am the Vice President of the Senior Council at Calvert Pines.
Good morning, come on up. We're gonna take a picture.
Rosemary Marr, President of Calvert Pines Senior Center.
Cecilia Martin, I'm the treasurer at the North Beach Senior Center.
Carol, President, Southern Pines Senior Council.
You're fine, you're fine.
Jeannie Holtree, Vice President, Southern Pines Senior Center.
My name is Judy Moffett. I come from Southern Pines Senior Center.
Good morning. I'm Harriet Yaffe. I'm the Vice President of the Calvert Commission on Aging, and I live in Port Republic. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Charles Harrell, and I'm privileged to serve currently as the chair of the Commission on Aging here in Calvert County.
Please come up. Ed, please come up as well. I want to thank you all for being here and all that you do. As an older American myself, when I retired, I had someone say to me, make sure you have something to do every day. Make sure you have a purpose to get up. Friends are so important at the ages we are at to have that support because our kids are older. They've got lives of their own, and we can't be depending on our kids for our social life, so we have to work with each other. And we have to be there for each other, and we can still have hopes and dreams, and we can still have goals. Those are very, very important. And Ed, I've been privileged enough to go to the North Beach Senior Center and see what's being done there, and I know it's being done at the other senior centers. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. That's a lifeline for our seniors. So I thank you all for all you do in Calvert County, and reach out to another senior. Get them out of the house. Tell them what you do. It'll make a difference. Thank you all so much. Whereas the older adults in Calvert County are the roots from which our community grows, who bestow gifts of wisdom and insight upon our younger generation, and who strengthen the bonds between neighbors to create a better place to live. And whereas an increasing number of adults are reaching retirement age and remaining stronger and more active than in years past, they are leading their families, engaging and connecting with their community and leading by example. And that's what I was talking about. That's so important for all of us. Whereas older adults in Calvert County are thankful for the opportunities to connect with others and will continue to contribute to the culture, economy, and character of our community and our nation. And whereas the President of the United States annually declares May as Older Americans Month, this year he will do so with the theme, Powered by Connection. This theme focuses on the profound impact that meaningful relationships and social connections have on our health and well-being. And whereas additionally, the Governor of Maryland annually proclaims May to be Older Marylanders Month. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Calvert County that the month of May be known as Calvert County Older Americans Month. By this action, let it be known that we honor and are indebted to Calvert County's older citizens for their lifetime achievements and service to our county. Given under our hands and sealed this 14th day of May, signed by all 5 county commissioners. Thank you all so much.
Yes. If it be okay, Beryl from North Beach, would you please join us? You certainly are an integral part of the North Beach Senior Center. Margaret Phipps on the Commission on Aging, if it be pleasing to you, would you please join us? We certainly could not do what we do without you, Ms. Phipps, so we'd love to have you join us. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Hans.
Hi.
Jennifer Moreland, our Director of Community Resources. We have other Office on Aging staff in the room also.
Jennifer, come on with us. First time he's gonna be younger. Ever.
Thank you so much, Ed. Have a good day.
So our next proclamation today is for National Safe Boating Week. Commissioner Ireland. I know. I was trying to catch you before you said it.
All right, National Safe Boating Week. Mr. Smith, are you and your crew coming up to speak? Are you the spokesperson? Yes, sir. I have the pleasure of knowing Mr. Smith. He was a volunteer at the Sheriff's Office for many, many years, so I worked with him in there for many years. He's wearing a different hat today, so go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Yes, my name is Bill Smith. I am the Drum Point Flotilla Staff Officer for Public Affairs. And I've got a little thing I'd like to read to you. The United States Coast Guard Auxiliary is 21,000 members serving our nation and communities in 793 local units. We contribute 3.8 million hours per year in support of the United States Coast Guard, including classroom, ramps, and piers, and operating 1,800 vessels, 160 aircraft, and 1,400 radio facilities. We remain semper paras, which means always ready. Today I have with me several members of the Drum Point Flotilla 2306 who I would like to come forward. Also, I've got one other thing. We have a boating class coming up the 22nd through the 24th of May at the Brown Community Center. Anyone born after July 1st, 1972, in order to operate a motor vehicle on the water, you must have this boating safety class. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Smith, if you want to come up, and the rest of you, if you would introduce yourselves and then move forward.
Good morning.
My name is Connie Cosgrove. I'm the Vice Flotilla Commander of Drum Point Flotilla, and I've been in the auxiliary since 1987.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Willie Wooders. I am a flotilla staff officer in charge of member training at Drum Point. I've been a member since 2005.
Morning. I'm Harry Scott. I'm the Human Resources Officer for the Drum Point Flotilla, and I've been a member since 2001.
Thanks, sir. So boating safety is extremely important, and I know Mr. Smith and the rest of his crew. How many courtesy inspections does your group do annually?
Actually, about 150.
Okay. So that's 150 inspections to make sure people are ready to go on the water. They have all their safety equipment, they have their proper credentials, their boats registered properly, and the whole 9 yards. And all that's volunteer, correct? Yes. All right, we appreciate everything you do. Without further ado, I'm going to read the proclamation. Whereas the National Safe Boating Council's Safe Boating Campaign is a worldwide effort focused on responsible boating. The campaign encouraged boaters to always wear a life jacket while on the water. And whereas, while being an excellent source of recreation, boating can also be a risky sport. Many lives are lost each year in the United States because of boating-related accidents, with the vast majority caused by human error. And whereas boating advocates recommend all boaters and recommend all boaters and passengers have a life jacket to wear while boating, regardless of age or experience level. More than 85% of reported drownings occurred when the person was not wearing a life jacket. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Calvert County that the week of May 18th through 24th, 2024 be known as National Safe Boating Week in Calvert County, promoting safe boating year-round. Be it further proclaimed that by this action we urge all citizens to wear it while boating. Given under our hands and seal this 14th day of May 2024, signed by all 5 county commissioners.
That way. Perfect.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Kate.
Yep.
So our next proclamation is for Emergency Medical Services Week. Commissioner Cox.
I guess we got Heather. Heather, you want to come up and introduce the group you have today, or we're going to start with Dave?
Good morning, Commissioners. Dave McDowell, Public Safety Director. It is my honor to be here today with the men and women of our EMS community. Truly watching them work and being able to support them over the last year has been an education, and it has actually been very prideful to see what they do. And I will say, whether volunteer or career, their commitment to preserve life is second to none. So thank you for recognizing them for this week, and I'm going to have everybody come up and introduce themselves.
Thank you, Dave.
I am Heather Howells. I am the EMS specialist for Calvert County.
Come on up, Heather.
Good morning, I'm John Tippett. I'm Deputy Chief for the North Beach Volunteer Fire Department.
Eric Holzberger, Assistant Chief, Prince Frederick Fire Department.
Terry Anderson, President, Solomon's Volunteer Rescue Squad Fire Department.
Carlos Gant, Chief of Prince Frederick Volunteer Rescue Squad.
Lieutenant Olivia Bryant, Huntingtown Volunteer Rescue Squad.
Emily Holtzberger, Lieutenant of EMS, Huntingtown Volunteer Fire Department.
Michelle Weems, Captain EMS, St. Leonard Fire Rescue.
Leanne Langley, Lieutenant EMS, St. Leonard Volunteer Fire Department.
Jerry Mumper, Deputy Chief, Calvert Advanced Life Support.
Daniel Firth, Chief, Calvert County Rescue Dive Team.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jim Richardson, Division Chief for Fire Rescue EMS, Department of Public Safety.
Kelly Carlson, Career EMS, Company 20.
Denise Dickerson on behalf of Calvert Crisis Response.
Ken Miller, Division Chief, Career EMS, Calvert.
Crystal Dow, Deputy Director for Public Safety. I do want to encourage the public to please express your thanks to all of these hardworking individuals next week and celebrate their achievements in our county.
Commissioners, good morning. Lieutenant Murins, Commander of the State Police Prince Frederick Barrack, also representing the State Police Aviation Command for this proclamation.
So like we started a meeting earlier this week, you know, it's not only the volunteers, the paid, the police force we have out there. We thank every one of you. And I've often said it's in your blood to be in this service. You know, it's a training. It's not just going to the scene, but it's a training that you all do. Saturday down to Sneed's, they were fundraising at Sneed's. So it's just continuous service that we thank you for your service and all you do for the citizens of Calvert County. So I have a proclamation here. It reads as, whereas emergency medical services are a vital public service, the members of the emergency medical service system serving Calvert County are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas the emergency medical service system consists of first responders, emergency medical technician, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, emergency nurses, and emergency physicians. Calvert County Fire and Rescue EMS first responders have provided volunteer service to the county for over 90 years. And whereas the members of the emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of special training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. Residents of Calvert County benefit daily from the knowledge and the skills of these highly trained individuals. And whereas the unwavering response to emergency calls, performing life-saving skills under stress, and providing patient care in intense situations does not end when the shift does. EMS is also community care that takes time, energy, and heart far beyond the scope of everyday's calling. And now, therefore, it be proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Calvert County that the week of May 19th through the 25th, 2024, be known as Emergency Medical Services Week in Calvert County. Be it further proclaimed that the appreciation of all Calvert Countyans hereby extend to all Calvert County volunteer and career EMS division providers, the Calvert County Sheriff's Office, the Maryland State Police, Calvert County Behavioral Health Mobile Crisis Team, and members of the Calvert Health Emergency Room who go beyond the call every day to create positive change in their communities with direct, long-lasting impact. Giving out hands and seals this 14th day of May, 2024. And we thank you all for what you do each and every day. Thank you.
Smile. Let's see everybody first. Here's your chance to blink. 3, 2, 3. I forget the
Jim.
but next to Crystal. Just go that way. Scooch. Now I can see. Oh, too much. Perfect. Commissioner McTurk. You're fine. You can back a little bit that way. Yes, you can back a little bit, and then have Jared come this way. We all do a lot for the community. Want to make sure we can see everybody. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Thank you for your patience for the photo. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Mr. Anderson. What are you doing, sir?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That's all you. You got it. Have a good day. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Okay. Good morning, sir.
And you? Good. Hello, sir. Hi, sir.
So the next item on the agenda is awards, and our first award is from the Employee Recognition Committee, 2024 Employee Recognition Committee Scholarship Program awardees. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Brooke Barco, and I am the Aquatic Division Chief for Calvert County Parks and Recreation, but I am here today as the Chair of the Employee Recognition Committee to introduce the 2024 Employee Recognition Committee Scholarship Awardees. So thank you to our scholars for joining us today. Some background of the scholarship: the ERC offers 2 scholarship categories and 3 awards annually to graduating high school seniors who are bound for college. The first category is graduating high school seniors whose parent or guardian works for Calvert County government. In this category, there are 2 prizes: $1,500 for first place and $750 for second place. The second category is for graduating high school seniors who are themselves a Calvert County government employee. This category offers one prize in the amount of $750. Funds for the ERC scholarship are raised year-round from vending machine sales located around Calvert County government on government property. In the spring, a notice announcing scholarship opportunity was emailed to all county employees. As applications were received, members of the ERC redacted all identifying information from the applications to allow for seamless and unbiased scoring. At the close of the application period, a committee then independently reviewed and scored the applications on a predetermined point system. I would like to extend a personal thank you to the ERC members of the Scholarship Committee for volunteering their time to support our youth. The applications are evaluated on many facets to include academic achievement, extracurricular activities, both in and out of school, community service involvement, honors and awards, letters of recommendations, and a short essay. This year's applicants were asked to write about a time they failed and what they learned from it. This year we received multiple applications, all in the category of graduating high school senior whose parent or guardian works for Calvert County government. So without ado, it is my pleasure and privilege to announce the winners of the 2024 Employee Recognition Committee Scholarship Award. So in first place, the winner of the $1,500 grand prize is dependent of Maria Luberske with the Department of Public Works, Water and Sewer Division, Natalia Ipatava. So Natalia and any friends or family that are here, would you please join me at the front?
Hi, my name is Natalia Ipatova, and I'm currently a graduating senior from Leonardtown High School, and next year I'll be going to Rider University. I want to thank you for selecting me for a scholarship.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Maria Lubarska, and I'm a Solid Waste Division Chief. I'm a mother of Natalia.
So Natalia is graduating from Leonardtown High School with an outstanding 4.19 GPA. Natalia's application reveals her outstanding scholar, engaging in AP classes and dual enrollment as CSM. Both of her recommendation letters emphasize her proactive attitude and determination. In addition to leading in the classroom, Natalia was involved in 6 different clubs, played tennis, volunteered at 7 recurring community service events, and held multiple board positions throughout her high school career. Natalia, I don't know how you managed it all. I was exhausted just reading about everything you accomplished. Natalia has also demonstrated a strong passion for the environment. During an online coding camp, she collaborated with her team to create an app that displays the location of recycling centers and calculates household environmental footprints in her community. Through this project, she formed numerous relationships that she utilized to expand her environmental service projects. She indeed has a bright future ahead of her. Her intelligence and hard work will open many doors for her, first of which is being accepted to Rider University. Maria, you must be very proud of Natalia, and congratulations again in your future.
Congratulations, Natalia.
So in second place, the winner of the $750 scholarship award for high school senior whose parent or guardian works for Calvert County government is dependent of David Payne with the Calvert County Sheriff's Office, Alyssa Payne. Alyssa, would you please join me at the front with any family or friends?
Hi, I'm Alyssa Payne, and I'm graduating from Calvert High School, and next year I'm going to Penn State. Christina Payne, I'm her mother.
Thank you.
Dave Payne, the assistant sheriff, but today I'm Alyssa's dad, and she wanted me to mention that she's having a 5K on Sunday at Calvert High, if anybody's interested. So.
Oh, cool. I could watch. Just saying.
We'll get somebody to chase you.
Alyssa sports an immaculate 4.17 GPA at Calvert High School. During her time at Calvert High, Alyssa was an active member of the National Honor Society, National Technology Honor Society, and Fellowship of Christian Athletes. She even served as the president of the National Honor Society for a year. Alyssa is also a standout high school athlete, participating in both volleyball and lacrosse for CHS, while also competitively dancing. As a captain, she led her volleyball team to become state finalists during the past season. Her letters of recommendation emphasized her constant activity, whether it was school, extracurriculars, work, or homework. Her dedication and commitment to excellence were evident. Her leadership and enthusiasm for learning serve as an example to others. She has her own definition of success, and I think we can all agree that she will exceed our and even her own expectations. David, I hope you're proud of Alyssa as we are. Congratulations again, and best of luck at Penn State.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Ain't no beating there.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next award is for Employee Recognition Committee Pride and Quality Award.
Good morning again.
Morning.
So we now have 2 Pride and Quality Awards. The Pride and Quality Award recognizes those employees whose extraordinary efforts have either, 1, produced significant and measurable cost savings to the county for their efforts, which have resulted in greater efficiencies, so that could be cost savings over time or measures that carry forward, or job performance, which has resulted in positive public relations for the county. So first up today, I would like to congratulate John Silcox with Technology Services. If you could join us at the front, John.
John Silcox, Technology Services Network Supervisor.
Come up front, John.
Come on up.
On March 17th, 2024, I think we all remember, when our storage subsystem encountered a severe error, John's quick response and dedication were instrumental. Despite the late hour, he promptly assessed the situation, engaged with the vendor for support, and worked tirelessly alongside the support team for several hours. John's proactive approach and strong problem-solving skills led to the development and implementation of a custom firmware solution, significantly reducing the recovery time. Throughout the incident, John maintained a calm demeanor, providing clear communication and guidance to the team. His commitment extended beyond the initial response as he explored long-term solutions to prevent future incidents and optimize our systems. John's exemplary efforts and dedication to ensuring network reliability, even during emergencies, make him deserving recipient of the Pride and Quality Award. I now would like to invite some of John's coworkers up to say a few words.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am pleased to have the opportunity to say a couple things about John. By the way, I'm Kat Poff. I'm the Deputy Director of Technology Services, and I wrote some things down because I didn't want to forget anything. I've been working with John for what feels like forever. He's like the go-to guy for all things tech, silently holding down the fort in our tech services world. You know that saying, you only realize a tech guy exists when stuff hits the fan? Well, John is a living embodiment of that. He is the behind-the-scenes hero, making sure everything hums along without a hitch. John's dedication is unmatched. Weekdays, weekends, office hours, after hours. Whenever there's a glitch in the matrix, you can bet John's already on top of it. He's like our own personal tech watchdog, spotting issues before the rest of us even catch wind of them and swooping in to take care of them. The example that was mentioned about what he won his Pride and Quality Award for, he worked from 7:30 p.m. one evening straight through until 8 p.m. the next day. No breaks. Now that's commitment. So next time your computer boots up smoothly, give a mental nod to John. He's one of the reasons we're all cruising along so seamlessly. Thank you, John.
Good morning, Stephen Pereira, Director of Technology Services. I just wanted to echo what Kat said about John. When I heard that we had an incident with the storage system going down, my first concern was for John, because I knew that he would work 30 hours non-stop, because that's what he does. Whatever the time of day, John's going to be on site. When there's a thunderstorm taking out a radio on the tower, we know that John's going to be there 2 a.m. in the morning till 5 without complaint. John is, as the network supervisor, he's aware of issues before people ever know that they're there. And to quote one of his favorite characters from Futurama, Bender, he said, when you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all. And that pretty much sums up our network team. They don't really exist as far as most people are concerned. They're just in the background, and they work tirelessly. I can't thank you enough for the work you do, John, and just keep it up. Thank you.
Kat, Stephen, would you please come forward and get a picture? Okay, we now have a second Pride and Quality Award winner today. I would like to congratulate Joy Weir with Calvert County Parks and Recreation. Joy, if you could please join me at the front.
Good morning. I'm Joy Weir. I'm the Therapeutic Recreation Supervisor for Calvert County Parks and Recreation. And I am very grateful for this honor today, but as any department, I wouldn't be as successful if it wasn't for my team behind me. I have a great group of individuals that help me provide all those services. Emily Sullivan, Laura Herron, Karen Gibbons, Julie Leach, and they are the backbone to what I can provide for our community. So, and also all the rest of the recreation team throughout all the divisions, because they are, I go to them with an idea and they're like, sure, we'll try it. So I can't do what I do without everybody else. So thank you.
Thank you.
Joy undeniably deserves this award for her exceptional leadership and dedication as the Therapeutic Recreation Supervisor for the past 18 years. Under her guidance, Calvert County Parks and Recreation Therapeutic Services program have experienced tremendous growth from serving just over 500 participants annually in 2006 to now over 7,700 individuals with special needs and disabilities every year. Joy's leadership is exemplified by her ability to offer 249 programs and special activities with a limited staff, showcasing her unparalleled commitment and organizational prowess. Her skill set extends to representing CCPR and the Americans with Disabilities Site Assessment Survey, where she demonstrates her invaluable knowledge, insight, and commitment to inclusivity and accessibility. Joy's dedication is also evident in her fundraising efforts for the TR Scholarship Fund, which supports individuals with financial needs to attend summer camps and programs. Her expertise in the therapeutic recreation is widely recognized, and her contributions extend beyond her role as she actively participates in community initiatives and serves in leadership roles within professional associations. Joy's outstanding accomplishments and unwavering commitment to serving the community make her a truly deserving recipient of the Pride and Quality Award. I would also like to personally congratulate Joy, as it's a pleasure working with you. So I would now like to invite some of your coworkers up to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Karen Gibbons, and I am a therapeutic rec aide, and I'm reading this on behalf of Emily Sullivan, who couldn't be here because she has a program. So, Joy Weir has been my supervisor since 2016. Her ambition and leadership continues to drive the therapeutic recreation of Calvert County to provide a scope and quality of services to our community that is second to none. Her passion and dedication makes those who she serves know they are a top priority and those she serves with the drive to exceed their best. I'm as honored to be a member of her team as I hope she is honored by this award. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bob Brenham, Parks and Recreation Director. I've worked with Joy since she started with the county, and it is truly a pleasure. It is our privilege. We are blessed in this county. Joy is not only the expert in Calvert County, Joy is widely known as an expert in this field far and wide. There's not a situation that arises that she is not impactful. I personally met with Joy at a summer camp many years ago with an issue that we were having in camp. I won't use names or examples. Joy came in. She provided direction. It took about 15 minutes. We turned this camper around in 15 minutes. We were at our wits' end. We didn't know what to do. We were weeks into the camp. Within minutes, she corrected the action, taught us how we should accommodate this individual. This young man became one of the best campers, one of the best experiences we had for many years after. He went through camp from beginning to end with us for many years. We were at the verge of displacing this camper and moving him to a different opportunity. Joy's expertise is invaluable. She does that not only for Parks and Recreation, for many departments in this county, many citizens in this county, and we are truly blessed to have Joy be a part of our team. So Joy, thank you very much. Joy's moment.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
So that brings us to appointments. Deputy Administrator Turner.
Good morning, Commissioners. Linda Turner, Deputy County Administrator. This morning we have several appointments for your consideration. The first is the Calvert Marine Museum's Board of Governors. Staff recommends the board appoint
Mr. President, I move that we appoint Theodore Haney and Karen Bailey and reappoint Nancy Wick to the Calvert Marine Museum's Board of Governors.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next will be for the Veterans Affairs Commission. Staff recommends the board fill the District 3 vacancy. Following this vacancy, there will be, following this appointment, there will be 3 vacancies.
I move that we appoint Craig Jones to fill the District 3 vacancy.
Second.
I have a motion and a second that we appoint Craig Jones to fill the vacancy in District 3. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to consent. We have a couple items under consent today. Item 1, Department of Public, Department of Parks and Recreation Battle Creek Nature Center Exhibits Program Open Space Grant. And item 2, Office of the County Administrator, Comcast easement for 3205 Brooms Island Road in Port Republic. Is there any objection to the items under consent today?
None.
Have none.
Chair would entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That brings us to presentations. Our first presentation is Department of Planning Zoning 2023 Tidal Creek Study. Good morning. Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Amalia Pleek-Tam, Environmental Planner with Planning and Zoning, here today with Dr. Laura Harris and Cindy Ross from Chesapeake Biological Lab from University of Maryland down in Solomons. Would the Commissioners like me to read the memo on the 2023 tidal water quality presentation, or would you like to jump straight into the presentation?
Why don't we just jump into the presentation?
Okay.
Great. Well, it's wonderful to be here. It's always humbling to go after all of our safety officers being recognized, to be a little humble about what I'm going to talk about next. And I want to say that I hear what's coming after my presentation, and my story will be good news. So we will be starting with a good news story.
Maybe we should have had you after the budget discussion.
And I know that Commissioners Hance and Hart have heard a lot of this before, so hopefully we've embedded this in your brains now, and it'll be a little bit of an in-depth dive on what I'm going to talk about, but it will be a bit of a review for folks who haven't heard me talk about this study. Can we go to the next slide, please? Oh, thanks. So the Commissioners have supported a tidal water quality sampling program in Calvert County since 1987. It was started by Dr. Walter Boynton, and it was expanded in 2011 to include pretty much all of the tidal creeks around the peninsula of Calvert County. And the things that we measure are the symptoms of eutrophication, which is the big water quality problem out in the Chesapeake Bay. We study the symptoms of that disease of the bay. And those symptoms are the levels of dissolved oxygen. So when we talk about the dead zone of the Chesapeake Bay in the summer, it's dead because there's no oxygen. So we want to see what the oxygen conditions are like here in the county. We measure temperature and salinity. We measure chlorophyll, which is a proxy for how much blooms of algae there are in the water. And then we measure something called Secchi depth, which tells us how much light is getting through the water column. And all of those things can be affected by pollution from nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediments, which is what we've all been working for so long to try to clean up the bay on. And we've done about half of the work we need to do in the bay. So these are the Solomons Harbor stations. They cover Back Creek, St. John Creek, and Upper Mill Creek. Because Mill Creek is so dominant in Solomons Harbor, we refer to this as the Mill Creek system. And just to get it in context of where 2023 was, so we're focused here on 2023, these are all the years of data we have for oxygen, algae, and how many blooms there are of that algae. 2023 was either low or right in the middle for all of those indicators of water quality health. If we look at dissolved oxygen at the 5 long-term sites, and these are divided into average precipitation years versus really wet years versus dry years, last year was excellent for dissolved oxygen in Solomon's Harbor. So that orange dot at the very end of that line is looking really good. The overall trend over the whole time series is still not great, but last year was excellent. And it aligns with our understanding of what happens when there's dry weather. When there's dry weather, we tend to have better water quality because less stuff runs off the land and into the water. We have this little movie of what that dissolved oxygen has looked like. Oh, maybe it won't go. We did have a little movie. It's not going today. But this is kind of a map of what that dissolved oxygen looks like. And you can see 1987, reds and greens are about the middle of the dissolved oxygen spectrum. And then this year we had much higher values. That tip end of Mill Creek still ends up getting a little bit lower than elsewhere. That's not uncommon in these sub-estuaries. The water in the upper part of the tidal creeks hangs out longer. And that just makes it more likely to have these lower dissolved oxygen levels. We can also see that over the whole time series, so starting in 1987 all the way through 2023, that the amount of algae at 5 long-term sites monitored in Solomon's Harbor has gone up. That's not good. We don't want a lot of algae around. But if you just focus on the years from 2020, 2019, 2022, 2023, you can see that there seems to be a more recent decline in the algae at those 5 sites. So just focus on the very end of the graph. And I think we should start to look at that very seriously. Last year I was like, who knows? Because it's only been 4 years, but we're getting on 5 years. If we have 1 or 2 more years of data and that's still going down, that's an excellent sign that things are starting to improve in Solomon's Harbor. These are the same data for the average surface water chlorophyll. And again, this is a movie that probably won't work, but you can see the 1987 data. And this is 2023. So 1987 was a fairly average year for total chlorophyll, and so was last year for Solomon's Harbor. And then the other thing that we measure is how often does the algae get so high that we would consider it a bloom condition. So we think of blooms as being about over 15 micrograms per liter of algae. And this is the count of the number of those blooms that happen between May and September in in Solomon's Harbor. And you can also see that in 2023, we weren't the lowest we've ever seen, but we're getting to about the average numbers. So for Solomon's Harbor, I'm very happy to report, especially to Commissioner Hart, things seem to be doing a little bit better. We also always report to you the data collected by the state on fecal coliform. All of the red numbers here are above what is considered a healthy number. But in 2023, all the numbers are in black, so this was good news for fecal coliform as well. And then unfortunately, we've had some real tragedies in the county around Vibrio infections, and so we've reported these data to you since about 2005. This graph, the very small bar numbers are the Calvert County confirmed cases. The second dark bar are the confirmed cases across the entire state. But we know that there's probably more Vibrio cases than folks go to the doctor for, so there are also statistical models that tell us how many probable cases there are, and that's the bars in gray. You can see there was a really high estimate for probable cases last year, but Calvert County remained about average 1 to 2 cases that we're used to over the whole data set. So now we can switch over to the work that we do in the tidal creeks, and we divide these between data we collect on the Patuxent River and those on the western shore. So the systems we visit on the Patuxent are Hall Creek, Hunting Creek, Battle Creek, Island Creek, St. Leonard Creek, and Helens and Hungerford. We have 3 stations in each of the creeks, one near the mouth of the creek going out to the Patuxent, one up towards the head of the tide, and then one in the middle. And these are the data that we have dating back to 2010, 2011 for both algae and oxygen levels. So high algae is bad, high oxygen is good, so you have to trick your brain with these graphs a little bit. And we just want to focus on what 2023 was like in terms of the whole time series. And in general, it was quite average. I would say that the one instance I would point out here, this is Island Creek, St. Leonard Creek, Helens, and Hungerford. If we go to the next slide, you'll see that Hunting Creek and Hall Creek are a bit above average. And Hunting Creek in general seems to be much more responsive to extreme storm events. We think that this might be from an extreme storm event that influenced one of the station dates. And then the oxygen levels are also all around average. So just like Solomon's Harbor, this isn't quite as good of a good news story as Solomon's Harbor and the Patuxent, but we're about an average situation for 2023. We also visit creeks on the western shore. So we go to Fishing, Plum Point, Parker's creeks, and these are kind of insets where you can see the detail of the stations we visit. We also go to Flag Harbor. It's a very small area, but it's still a place we want to know the water quality for. And again, this is pretty good news story, either average or a little bit below, with the exception of Plum Point Creek. Plum Point Creek is often on the worst end of the water quality indicators in all of the creeks that we study. And that's something that shouldn't be new news to the county from the work that we've been doing. We also take these data and compare them to the Maryland DNR's long-term monitoring stations. So the Chesapeake Bay program goes out in the Patuxent and also the western shore of the Chesapeake, and they go out on a monthly basis and take all kinds of measurements. And we can look at how those numbers vary compared to within the creek. And that tells us a little bit about what the influence is of the water adjacent to the creeks on the water quality in these places that are much more important to Calvert County residents. It also can tell us the influence of the surrounding watersheds at the local scale. How much control does Calvert County have on the water quality in these systems? Can they make a difference by doing something in the local watershed of that creek? Or is it largely influenced by what's happening in the bigger Patuxent system or the western Chesapeake? So that's a big part of why we're collecting these data. And most of the time for our data set, we're seeing no trends. So we've thought a lot about that. You know, our data goes back to 2010, 2011. We expect that a lot of the change that's happened in these creeks already had happened by 2010 or 2011. So it's probably not a big surprise that we're seeing no trend. The exception to that is the upper Patuxent consistently has some poor degrading trends for Hunting and Hall Creek. And so that's something I think we need to keep an eye on. And they're often aligned with patterns in the main stem of the Patuxent as well. So the bigger system, I know that there's county representation on the Patuxent River Commission. That matters to us as folks in Calvert County because the bigger river system is affecting likely our smaller subestuaries, and it's important that we're involved in those conversations. There's also good news, especially in St. Leonard Creek. St. Leonard Creek is like its own cool little subestuary. It's a really neat system. I love St. Leonard Creek. And the good news there is we're seeing improvements in water quality. And, you know, I think that's a place to think about since the Patuxent River itself is not having noticeable trends in the same time period, that there may be local improvements or changes that are starting to have an impact.
So just a note, in the future, it would be helpful to see the drainage for these creeks.
Sure.
So we can sort of in our heads figure out what's impacting the creeks.
Sure, yeah, we can definitely put the watershed boundaries on there for you all. So the other thing, this is kind of, now let's think about the big picture story. Since 2010, there's been some degrading trends, but a majority show no trend. Most of the degradation is in the Patuxent. And I do want to note that dissolved oxygen is a pretty tricky thing. We go out and measure it during the day, and that's when all of the phytoplankton are partying, right? They're creating a lot of oxygen. And typically, the lowest dissolved oxygen you see is at night, when those same phytoplankton don't have light to do photosynthesis, and they're instead respiring and using up oxygen. And so it's important to think about larger context data. Some students at CBL just have this paper published, and Jeremy Testa and I are co-authors on this with them. And the data on the bottom, it looks kind of complicated, but I'll give you the cheat sheet, which is that the number of hypoxic days per year, so the number of days that there are dead zones in the Patuxent, has increased over the last 25 years. So that's not good news. The Patuxent is degrading around dissolved oxygen, even if our data aren't catching it because we go out and measure during the day.
Is that overall or upriver?
It's the whole, all of the tidal Patuxent.
Okay.
And then the second graph here is a different measure of dissolved oxygen problems, and this is how big is that dead zone. And unfortunately, that dead zone is getting bigger. So we have this larger set of forces in the Patuxent that we need to keep an eye on, even as we're having some good news stories at a local scale in places like St. Leonard Creek and Solomon's Harbor.
So, do you monitor the creeks on the St. Mary's and Charles County side of the river?
No, we do not. Yeah. There is a new interest, so I'll get to this in a couple slides, but the Chesapeake Bay program is shifting some of their focus to shallow water ecosystems in the Chesapeake Bay. We've been focused a long time on the deeper dead zones of the Chesapeake, which are sticky widgets. Once those deep parts of the bay get to be dead zones, it's hard to move them. And so there's a little bit more of an interest in looking at, well, what's happening in the shallows, because that's really critical, important habitat for fish and crabs and all the things we care about. And so there may be opportunities to think about that, and we've actually benefited from a recent opportunity to do some more work that we hope will benefit you, that I'll talk about in one slide.
It just would be important to figure out, what the other half looks like.
Right.
Yeah, to see is it as consistent as on the side, or,
Yeah.
To see how impactful we could be.
And then you look at the drainage areas and figure out what's going on in those, because that's what's impacting the flows, so.
Right. Well, and I'm so glad that Amalia's a rock star and has gotten funding from NIFWIF to do non-tidal stream monitoring and revive that program for you all. Last year, we presented the results of a synthesis that we'd done. 2 years ago, I presented it during like COVID time on Zoom with you all. But we did a synthesis of the existing non-tidal data from Calvert County and tried to make an early attempt at connecting that to the tidal water data. And we didn't have enough time to make a clear connection, but now we have this new grant with Maryland Sea Grant where we have a whole graduate student who's going to be dedicated to looking at how we can connect what's happening on land in Calvert County to these data from the water quality monitoring program.
Let me ask something, and I think you guys do phenomenal work. I love it. You guys you actually have real data, and you have a large time stamp. I know you guys present this all the time. Are you seeing any headway in Annapolis to where, they can't deny it. You're showing them a consistent trend and consistent patterns. Is there any headway showing where I'm sure they acknowledge it, but if they don't acknowledge it without money and a plan, it doesn't matter. Are you seeing any light at the tunnel that they're finally going to take this serious?
Well, there's a new program at the Chesapeake Bay to deal with the fact that we're probably not going to meet the 2025 goals of the Chesapeake Bay program. I don't want to fault anyone for having high hopes. If we set the bar high, then we try to jump that far.
The goal's to win.
Yeah. But I think this shift to thinking about, well, let's get a little nuanced about the habitats we know are functioning and making sure that those are protected and improving, and starting there rather than the deeper part of the Chesapeake Bay, which has been the biggest part of the focus of the water quality criteria. So for example, I was involved with our statistician, Dong Liang, at the Chesapeake Bay program and looking at dissolved oxygen criteria. So how do we calculate, how do we take the data, pull it all together across space and time and decide whether a chunk of estuary is meeting the goals or not? So there's math involved in that, and there's decisions you make about the math. And right now that math is very much focused on the deep part of the bay because that's what we've cared about, honestly. We've cared about that, restoring that deep part of the bay. But with this new interest in shallow water ecosystems and understanding how they're behaving, I think that's going to give us a more nuanced picture of all the benefits that may be more fixable in the 10 to 15-year time scale, so that we can keep having oysters, keep having crabs, keep doing all of that. So I do feel a lot of hope. The challenge is the stuff we have to clean up is hard. It involves, we cleaned up all the pipes, right? We cleaned up all the wastewater treatment plants, and now we're having to clean up farms, which involves people, which involves our food, which involves the economy. Wow, sticky problems.
Is that still?
I think it's generally accepted that the Conowingo, has reached some of its limits for mitigating some nutrient inputs, but we have a good number on that now, and it's still, the challenge is a lot of these
Every governor
other
has said they're going to take it on and go after Pennsylvania, and it just doesn't seem to happen.
Yeah, that part of it is hard because it involves people and farms and money.
Lots
Yeah.
of money.
Yeah, and it
he
probably
didn't like the rain tax, for the record. I
Well,
remind him every time you come, I remind him.
and he corrected me.
He hated the rain
Was it
tax.
last year at this time? Or
Every
whatever?
time she comes.
I know,
I
and,
remind
and, and I will say, if it truly goes to cleaning that bay up, I'm all in. If it goes to general fund, I'm
So now
not.
he likes the rain tax.
Yes. I mean, when he brought that to my attention, I give it to him. So if it could clean 1 gallon of water, I'm about it. You know what I mean? But if it goes in the general fund and gets lost, no. But that bay needs money.
Well, let me skip ahead to what we're hoping to do with this new grant, because I think this is a really exciting, good news story. So we have funding from the Maryland Sea Grant Omnibus to really take our data and all the non-tidal data and the Chesapeake Bay Programs models and to amp up what we did for you with a $5,000 price tag several years ago. Now we have a whole graduate student, we have 3 scientists involved. We are going to do meetings with Amalia and Tamara talking about how to come up with solutions and to come up with real practical ways that Calvert County can try to meet these challenges that also fit within what's reasonable and doable. We want to be doable. I'm a very practical person, right? I'm like Gen X through and through, let's just get it done. And, that project I think will really help us think about, pump outs for septic systems. How do we encourage living shorelines? How can we leverage what the Environmental Commission is doing for their outreach to educate folks about lawn fertilizer? How do we understand the growing, increasing temperatures and their added effect on dissolved oxygen in these systems, which is a big issue in Solomon's Harbor. So I'm really excited about that and to work with you all on now some solutions for the next few years to take these data to the next step.
And we know that we have waterfront communities that have septic issues that,
Yeah.
So,
Mill Creek, Mill Creek is
so to
struggling.
piggyback on what President Hance just said, it would be nice in your study, we spend millions of dollars each year on the BAT units, let's find out where we're putting that money, what communities, and how it's impacting on each creek.
Yeah, so can we develop a strategy, you know? I mean, there's this challenge of fairness. You want to distribute those grants fairly to your residents. There's also a question of like, well, if you put them all in one place, can that have more bang for your buck in
Well, we're
terms
doing
of
it
the
for failing
outcome?
systems now, so.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
every system eventually is going to go that way in that.
In the critical area,
Yeah,
yes.
so,
Yeah.
and my question is I hope it works, because it's a lot of time and it's a lot of money. Are we getting data back on those, and how effective they are? I mean, the old antiquated system we know doesn't work. We know that. I mean, there's no such thing as gray water is harmless. It adds an element.
Well, even a functioning septic system that's traditional removes like 2/3 of the pollution in it. So that's the first thing. That's a policy tool you already have through environmental health, is just getting existing septic systems functional. Now, you do see pipes into streams and you do see failures in backyards. We just need to fix those basic ones. And then the reason the BAT program is in the critical areas, that's the more direct connection to the stream, and so that's where we need to clean up even more. And those BAT systems, Steve Cullen and Dave Brownlee did great studies in the early OOs showing how effective those are. Michael Gondior and Andrew Hayes and I had a study where we did some work looking at those systems with wastewater tracers, and we saw how effective they were. And there's like national data showing that those systems they can clean up like another 20%. So you can't ever quite get to zero, but you can get really, really close with the BAT systems.
So obviously, a water sewer program is the best, but it's just not feasible. I mean, if
Right.
everything could never be pumped out of there, so you believe this investment in BAT is paying off then? I mean,
I
if
think
we
that
can't do
yes.
the other,
Yes.
then this is the next best thing.
Yeah, I
Do you
think
have a
that's
BAT?
one of my main,
No, but it
let's
hasn't
do this.
So when he has to put in a bat,
President
he's
Hansen
gonna
hasn't
scream.
failed yet.
He's gonna scream at what it's gonna cost.
Well, there is a grant.
Maybe, until they run out of money.
I mean, the other thing that which we'll explore is that the tank systems where you're not putting anything into the groundwater, where some
outs.
people, yeah.
Holding tanks.
Yeah, but
Pump outs.
Pump
yeah,
outs.
but
Police department hates them.
well, are you talking about a holding tank?
Yeah.
That's death to the value of a house, though. It's death.
But it completely removes it from the groundwater.
Oh yeah, there's no, but yeah.
So
but-
again, practical me, I think we should put things on the table and get it done, right? And some things are maybe a little bit wild, but let's think about what's doable within the silos. I mean, we want people to be healthy too. I don't want to go, environmental health is preventing cholera and important things like that. So, we have to be in line with them. But I think thinking very creatively, if you can't sewer an area like the ranch estates, what are the other solutions is there are ways to think about that.
But that's encouraging to hear, because that system is very expensive, and to pump it out, it's a lot more maintenance. It's got alarms on it and levels. I mean, it's a system. But at least if it's actually doing what it's supposed to do, and we believe that, and we got data to show that, at least you can feel good about, hey, we're helping protect the environment.
Yeah, definitely, I think feel very proud if you have a BAT system, and also if your system has failed and you get right on it and put in a functioning one and you're further up in the watershed, that's also a good action. There are a lot of we have old septics in this county, right?
And in those communities, even those systems that aren't failing yet are probably not working properly.
Absolutely. Have we explored the idea of having mini systems? Like along the lakes up in New York, they have mini systems for like these waterfront communities. I mean, I know it's a land acquisition, I know it's some money, and it would be a convoluted process, but those mini systems would eliminate your holding tank issue, they would eliminate your septic issue and runoff, and even BAT systems. How long are they gonna last, and is the land gonna actually perk for these BAT systems, and how much longer?
Well, that's an issue too, right? Because you could end up holding tank. So I mean, right? Because if it doesn't perk, you're done.
Yeah, so I think that those have been conversations that have percolated around with environmental health and the environmental planning division, especially in some of the vulnerable cliffside communities that are running out of space. So I think those conversations are happening, but it's definitely worthwhile to keep having them. The other thing I'll say, which is happening all over Anne Arundel County, is salinization of groundwater in coastal communities. the minute you get salt in your septic systems from sea level rise intrusion, those systems stop functioning regardless of whether they're bats or traditional. And so that's also necessitating some creativity about how we handle wastewater in those areas.
What is the difference between a bad system and a traditional system?
So the advanced nitrogen removing septics usually have a second tank that's full of wood chips. So I'll give you the basics. You basically have to pay for a little bit of electricity to pump your effluent, the liquid part of the waste, through the wood chips. And the wood chips become these magical habitats for all of the bacteria that do the good work, good bacteria that turn all that bad nitrogen into nitrogen gas. Nitrogen gas in the atmosphere doesn't hurt anybody. So we want that to happen. And so these wood chips become these special little habitats for that, those bacteria to do that work. And so it's pretty simple. Like that's, I don't know, people could make it more complicated.
It's got filters too, right? There are a bunch of filters on those too.
And the
that they have to be
filters-
cleaned.
Yeah, so the filters are helping with the pumping because you don't want to clog it up with a lot of solids, you know. So there's a little bit of that engineering, but the basics are most of the nitrogen is in the liquid. Let's throw that through some wood chips, have the bacteria give us this great service of turning it into gas, and then put it into the groundwater.
So let me go back to your creeks. When you do your surveys in your creeks, are they done the same calendar date time annually? Or are they done based upon weather trends annually? How do you do those?
So we visit the Solomon's Harbor stations 9 times between May and September, and we try to go out every 2 weeks. It's not the same calendar date. I mean, tides change.
Correct.
You know, weather change. They're definitely not static systems. So we're just trying for about the same time of the year. And then the tidal creeks and all of the little parts of the peninsula, we go out once a month, June, July, and August.
All right, so the deep water part of the bay, you said that's your primary concern. I mean, I know in summertime that a crab, so anything beyond 15 feet, you better stay out of there in the heat of summer because all of it's dead. I mean, everything in your pots will be dead if you're outside that 15-foot line, it seems like. But what do you attribute all that dead zone to? Because of lack of current, less tide movement in the deeper depths, shipping traffic, kind of wingo damage? What do you attribute it to?
So it's mostly caused by nitrogen and phosphorus pollution, and those nutrients go in and create these huge blooms of algae. And when the algae die, they sink to the bottom, and bacteria consuming them use up all the oxygen. And then because it's so deep, you have fresher water on top and saltier water on the bottom. And when you have those density differences, it's almost like it's two different rivers.
Right.
And the bottom water's effectively cut off from the atmosphere, especially in the summer when there's not a lot of waves. And so that bottom water just gets stuck with the oxygen going down and down and down. So the big thing is we need to stop feeding the bottom with all this juicy organic matter that we've created by adding nitrogen and phosphorus. And if we stop feeding that bottom, then hopefully the oxygen will come back.
So your shallower waters are able to sustain because of movement?
And they're shallower, they get mixed, we have storms
Okay.
and things like that. Now, it's not that we don't get hypoxia. I mean, Solomon's Harbor, we did a study with a student last summer, and it gets to be pretty nasty at night in Solomon's Harbor. But, you know, it's not as sustained because it's shallow, so every few weeks when you get a storm, it'll get mixed up, and they're just a little bit less vulnerable than those super deep, like, you know, 60-foot parts of the bay. And it's not me, it's the Clean Water Act that's really the driver behind the restoration of the Chesapeake Bay. So we have a federal law that's really
They need
governing
to
that.
enforce it though.
All right, so if you know that's been the problem, and you said since 2010, 2011 data, everything's pretty much sustained, have those deeper pockets sustained as well over the last 14 years, or have they changed?
Over the last 10 years, it's up and down. Like sometimes the report card for the bay is a D, and sometimes it's a C minus.
Okay, so there is fluctuation in
Yeah,
that.
there have been places that have improved, like Back River up in the Patapsco, which has largely been influenced by a wastewater treatment plant. They upgraded, like, oh my gosh, it's a pretty deep system. It got healthy right away.
Really?
Mattawoman Creek on the Potomac, similar thing. Small wastewater treatment plant, shut off that pipe, all the SAV and bass came back, and it's a pretty deep system. So we do have a lot of those examples where things have gotten better. It's just the really big, deep, like, the Chesapeake is almost like an inland sea, right? It's this big system, and we have to really change what we're putting into it to see an effect. And we're about halfway there. We're the same place that the Baltic, the European countries are around restoring the Baltic. We've all removed about 50% of the pollution we should, and we have 50% to go.
But that was the easy 50.
Yes, yes.
Then it's the hard 50.
Yes. Yes, yeah. Yeah, and you know that more than anyone, President Hance, with your work in ag. So agriculture, like that, we just have to think very creatively about how we can do that differently. Or mitigate what's coming off ag fields before it gets to the bay.
So, one last thing, I ran into your crews
There's
last
no ag
year,
in Mill Creek watershed.
last year a few times in in Plum Point Creek in the harbor.
Oh, okay.
basically doing- It was you?
That was me. I was like,
Okay, so anyhow, I spoke to them and talked to them, asked them what they were doing, and they told me, and I shared with them how clear the bay's actually been this particular year, but they were telling me how dirty the harbor is.
Yeah.
And if we have a bad storm, it does look like a yoo-hoo pumping out into the bay without a doubt, coming out of that creek. I mean, you know, it's mud mostly is what it looks like, and different sediments, but, it's interesting. I appreciate you doing what y'all are doing to try to improve our water quality.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I mean, Commissioner Hant's point about the Mill Creek not having ag, there's the big picture of the Chesapeake, and there's the small scale of what we can fix here in Calvert County, and sometimes the solutions on this scale are different than on this scale. And for Calvert, a lot of it is septic. So, you know, I think there's things we can do about that.
Those communities, those old communities on old septic systems.
Yeah, and it's painful. I've had to fix my septic. I mean, that is like hard when you want a new kitchen and you have to fix your septic instead.
But you know, whatever it takes to clean the bay. I already say that a little bit, whatever it takes.
Hey, that is something different with me. I've always loved it as a kid. I mean, but that's money well spent. You know, when you see some of the stuff they do with money, you know, but yeah, I don't think there's anybody walking the earth hardly would say, if I knew my dollar was gonna make that bay and those rivers better and healthier for future generations, I think they'd be all about it.
I can introduce you to some of those people.
I'm just serious. I mean,
as we've talked about, our challenge, you know, it's everything. But these old waterfront communities, we know there are issues, and it's a challenge for us to figure out how to address those. Because we don't want to run sewer pipes over this entire county, because
Right.
that's another issue. But, you know, and package plants are cost effective for, you know, a 40-house subdivision, you know. And,
Yeah. Well,
it's-
you know, the bay, and I know we're having to deal with issues of flooding that are different now too, and
High
the critical
tides.
area commission is, yeah, so daylight flooding's a huge deal. And part of the thing is, you all are the space, because the state isn't really doing it, where those two things come together, and you have the power to think about both of them at the same time. You know, a lot of the actual state and federal level management is dealing with flooding here and nitrogen here. But at the local county level, there are opportunities to do both at the same time and be efficient. And that's why I'm so excited about this grant. We're gonna hopefully help you all think about that a little bit creatively.
So have you measured the level of tides in the Patuxent River? Because I live on Battle Creek, and high tides now are all the time. And if you have an old pier, your pier's underwater.
Yeah.
You're seeing when the piers get rebuilt, they're
So-
building them higher.
So along those same lines, I worked on the river all winter, and we had some significant high tides. When you have those significant high tides, all that water has to get out of here. And guess what? It runs out of here about twice as fast as it normally would, and brings everything out of the marshes. It's stirring up the bottom. I mean,
Well, hopefully you
gotta
can
play-
bring in
play a-
someone like Hallie Kilborn, my colleague Hallie Kilborn, who's worked on this. The tides themselves haven't changed that much, but we are a hot spot for sea level rise. And that means you're closer to where the tides are hitting your house because the water line has changed. And that is a very real threat. I mean, we're talking about a meter, 3+ feet of elevation change for the water line.
If you just watch the high tides, that's all you gotta do.
Yeah.
And so to your point, we are actually about to start updating our nuisance flood mitigation plan, which speaks directly to tidal flooding, and working with some folks in public safety, public works, looking at that flood inundation modeling so we can more accurately see what is in line for our future.
There have been more coastal flood advisory warnings on my phone this year than I can ever remember.
Yeah.
Things are definitely changing, and we're losing all our marshes because of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
The marshes are all going away.
Well, now this became a sad news story. Let's go back. Solomon's Harbor is doing better.
You gotta end on a positive note, right?
We're just trying to delay talking about the budget.
I was gonna say, you want to see sad? Wait about 5 minutes.
Just hang around, don't leave.
Yeah.
We have tissues.
We got a real tearjerker coming.
This is much better than what we have coming next. But, you know, well, we greatly appreciate the work that you all do.
Thank you.
We understand that it's important, you know, we're gonna keep funding the grant because, it's important, and we need to know.
Right. Well, thank you, and you
Thank
all
you.
are always welcome. I mean, we go out, especially in Solomon's Harbor, the boat we use for that has room for a guest or two. So if any of you ever want to come out and spend a morning with Cindy sampling. And I just also want to acknowledge Oprah Cindy, who's sitting in the back. She's an intern from the College of Southern Maryland. We have a partnership with the community college here to try to bring in students. So all this crew has been great for doing the actual data collection. I just do the gabbing. So.
Dr. Boynton, I haven't seen him in a while.
Dr. Boynton, yeah,
He
he
was just
still
in our
comes around,
office.
yeah.
A couple weeks ago, yeah.
He's volunteering a lot with the Friends groups around the county, which is a great thing, and I just had breakfast with him, he's doing great.
So while I have you, do y'all cross over with fisheries and water quality?
Definitely, I collaborate a lot with Ryan Woodland. We've actually done work mostly in the Patapsco around Baltimore Harbor, looking at these interactions of habitat availability for perch and then mercury pollution in urban environments. And that paper, that's one of the, there's very few really connecting the dots on the oxygen availability in the fish, and the work Ryan and I did is trying to do that. Yeah.
Because when you said the Patapsco's been cleaned up, and I know the last several years, all the rockfish have gone straight up the bay and they want to hang out in Baltimore Harbor. So I didn't
Yeah,
know
the
if-
Middle Branch, that was part of that study. It was a surprise to me to go in this super urban environment, and the Middle Branch and even Curtis Creek are these really cool habitats for perch. I mean, I don't think anyone should eat the fish there because the mercury is also not great, but in terms of it being habitat for the fish, there's this nice little sweet spot of oxygen availability and food, and the perch love it up there, so, yeah.
Is that why we don't have
We have perch. The rockfish are all up there, though.
We have dolphins, we have blue cats.
Yeah,
Too many of them.
yeah, everyone should be eating the blue
You
catfish.
study those? Do you have any-
Tom Miller, you know, I work with phenomenal fish people. So Tom Miller and Dave Secor, Mike Wilberg, and Ryan Woodland are all great fisheries faculty. And Tom has been involved in the blue catfish discussions. You know, that's something we're encouraging everyone to catch and eat, as many as you can. It's
Well,
good
we have a
eating.
prohibition against catching them in Chesapeake Bay, don't we?
So we do. So I run catfish trot lines. I had almost 30,000 pounds this winter, but you cannot run a finfish trot line below the Bay Bridge outside of the rivers. You're allowed to, but you can't do it in Tangier Sound. You can't do it in Pocomoke Sound, I believe is the other sound. So I didn't know that. I kind of told on myself, but I inadvertently found out there's a lot of fish right in the area of Plum Point Creek.
Okay.
A lot of fish. Like, I probably could have doubled what I had if I was able to be there and doing that. So the state's working on it. I've made some great contacts with several people at Fisheries, and they say within the next couple months we're probably going to have a pilot program where they're going to allow us to fish in that area. So it all worked out, and I didn't get in trouble. That's the best thing. So.
Yeah, there's definitely that expertise at the Bay. It's folks I collaborate with, so I tend to stay in the mud and the water.
Good for you. Don't you have more questions? Because the next item on the agenda.
Thank you.
No, Kim Strong, you can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
commissioners have any formal recommendations for staff?
No, other than, well, we talked about the slide, if you include the drainage areas and the
Yeah,
rivers, it would
right.
help us figure out, you
Right.
know, and
And the BAT systems.
BAT
Where they're,
systems.
most found at.
if there's some kind of geographic mapping you can do for the BATs.
Yeah, we're looking at that data. It's a lot of file data to go through to then get those maps. We have been talking with environmental health about that.
Any suggestions on those waterfront communities, we'd be more than open to.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be working with Amalia over the next year or two to come up with, next year should be exciting for that way. I'll try to include some of those results, so you see what we've been doing in that regard.
Great.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Arlen wasn't kidding, he did leave.
Smart.
So next item on the agenda is Department of Finance and Budget fiscal year 2025 budget update. I gotta go. If he can leave, I can leave. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So I'm here with Elizabeth Richmond. She's going to provide the introduction.
She's smiling, she must have found money last night.
Yes, and then I will, after she does the introduction, I'll go with my monologue for a while. Thank you.
I must be in trouble since he's calling me Elizabeth, so. Background, the Department of Finance and Budget desires to update the Board of County Commissioners, or BOCC, on the fiscal year, also known as FY 2025 budget, with a presentation providing the steps taken to date, the existing revenue deficit, possible bridging strategies, and remaining considerations. Discussion. The FY 2025 staff recommended budget, or SRB, contained a $28 million revenue deficit. This deficit has been reduced to $11.5 million. This presentation will provide an overview of how the SRB deficit was reduced and then provide coping strategies intended to eliminate the remaining deficit and address remaining decisions that the BOCC needs to consider. This presentation will also identify new revenue streams that should be considered for future fiscal year revenue inclusion, as current budget constraints will continue into FY 2026 and possibly into FY 2027. It should be noted that this presentation highlights items in the general fund only, and therefore does not address issues and/or considerations pertaining to the Calvert County Public Schools Board of Education budget. Fiscal impact to be determined. Conclusion recommendation, the Department of Finance and Budget appreciates the opportunity to present the attached information and ask the Commissioners for their consideration.
Thank you. So with that, I'll be a little redundant. So I want to provide an outline of an overview of the current budget status and present possible balancing options for your consideration. I also seeking direction for what options to include in the adopted budget that will be presented on June 4th. As Beth noted, there are some different strategies, but one of the things I want to point out is that I am trying to steer away from the use of fund balance. The reason I'm doing that is the county has really used fund balance for PAYGO over the last couple of years, which is all fine and dandy. I mean, that's what PAYGO, funding source for PAYGO should be. But that on top of the revenue shortfall that I'm estimating this year for fiscal year '24, because we were a little overly aggressive, optimistic on revenues for fiscal year '24, that's going to impact your fund balance. So all those included, what I will be presenting is not going to include fund balance as a coping strategy. So with that, the next slide, we started with a projected deficit at $28 million. We were then able to change some revenue estimates and also work on the expenditure side and brought down the current revenue deficit that we need solutions for to $11.5 million. So the revenue adjustments that we have made to date, we increased revenues for real estate taxes by $6 million. This was really just looking at the triangle revaluations for each of the 3 districts and using actual increases, and those increases, we were able to bring that in versus using 4% straight line across. So we really sharpened the pencil. The good side is that we have a more accurate revenue estimate, but it doesn't give you that flexibility that you would normally have. And next is an increase in Calvert Cliffs. That was brought about by the new pilot agreement that has been adopted, I guess, by $3.7 million. The next is the increase in Cove Point. That's a function of SDAT redoing the evaluation on the LNG plant and that facility. As you know, we continue to go through that process. That's definitely undefined at the moment, but we were able to increase revenues by $5 million because of the increase of $400 million of values with that. We also brought in a little bit of revenue on the Airbnb and Vrbo tax of $300,000. That's a higher number for an annualized amount, and that's one of the things that we'll be pursuing for fiscal year '26. And then the total, so the total of all these were $15 million. To spend a little time on the next slide. So the difference between the 24 and 25 appropriations decreased by $4.5 million. But there's a story behind that, and which I'd like to spend a little bit of time going through, because it really speaks volumes to the efforts the administration made to cut the to cut the budget. Staffing increases increased by $400,000. That's primarily in public safety. Fixed costs and transfers increased by $4.2 million. That's with the pensions and a lot of transfers to the special revenue funds. So the total increase to the budget was $4.7 million. So now
But most of that is because of the pensions.
Pension and transfers to special revenues. So now the hardware came in. So right off the bat, there were cuts to all vehicle purchases across the board, $2.1 million. Then we looked at salaries and attrition being those salaries that you haven't used. So we went back into the 3-year analysis, and even though we appropriated X, we only spent Y, so we took that delta and decreased the budgets by that.
Speak into the mic, yes.
Yes. So, and then from there, the salary decreases were equivalent to $3.2 million. The health insurance reduction was $1.5 million. As you know, health insurance costs go up national average over 10% a year. We increased, I think, about 6% over last year. We were fortunate enough that the increases recommended by our consultant was flat, so we didn't have a major increase. With that, we eliminated the intern program.
Go back to health insurance for me, please.
Yes, sir.
Please. So explain that a little better about how you're taking a reduction through health insurance when costs are going up.
our health insurance advisors did not recommend a increase to our premiums.
For 2025.
Yes, sir.
So that'll
I-
remain flat, but you had projected an increase
Yes, sir.
in the staff recommended budget.
Yes, sir.
So that's how we can reduce that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
Just want to make sure everybody understands why we're doing, how we're
Okay.
doing what we're doing.
And I apologize for not getting to
fine.
those. There are four interns within the county government. We eliminated those. And then operating decreases, that was the operating expenses. Again, using same methodology that we used to look at the salary attrition. We did the same, look back for 3 years and looked at what was spent versus what was appropriated and took those savings into the budget. So after all is said and done, starting with the vehicle elimination and working through the operating decreases, that totals $9.1 million. So after everything is said and done, the difference between the 9.2 and the 4.6, which were the budgetary increases, that's where you get the net change of $4.5 million between fiscal year '24 and '25.
So you reduced $9 million out of the budget, but you had increases of $4 million. So just so everybody understands, the net, there's a net reduction of 4.5.
Yes. Plus, my next slide, $13 million. If you go down to the PAYGO amount, on the far left, you'll see PAYGO, and you'll see elimination of $13.7 million of PAYGO out of the budget. So you take that $13 million, you add to the $9 million, there was $21 million cut out of the operating budget.
Why, explain why there's a reduction of 13 million in PAYGO.
Well, my $13 million, again, it goes back to the original statement where I wanted to, or I'm recommending anyway, that we eliminate as much as possible using fund balance. Fund balance is going to be around $45 million, plus or minus the impact of the revenue deficit for fiscal year '24. We're getting into a margin where we need to look very, very hard at how we use PAYGO.
But the reason we eliminated the 13 million in PAYGO is because we're not going to do any CIP projects in 2025.
Currently, yes, sir.
Okay, that's, you've worked around that. But I just want to be clear that everybody understands, we've eliminated all the CIP projects in '25, except those that are grant funded or have significant grant funding, which is an opportunity that we don't want to leave.
And the ongoing.
And ongoing projects to
Yes, sir.
compete those projects,
Right.
so. That's where the 13
Basically,
million.
that was 24 prior funding, correct?
Yes. But there's, the way the county appropriates the dollars and appropriates the projects on the roll forward, there's also future dollars.
Okay, yep.
So, and
Which goes to his point.
Yes.
Yes.
okay, and you don't have that list in here, right, of those projects that
No,
are
I'm
moving
going to be
forward?
talking with the county administrator to provide that in more detail. So now I'd like to shift gears. We had talked about what we have done to decrease the deficit from, oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Thank you. Here, you drive. I've talked about how we got here, reducing the $28 million down to $11 million. But we still have $11.5 million hurdle to jump. So what I'm recommending is a combination of tax increases, local receipt increases, Chapter 86 is up for discussion, and outstanding receivables. I know, none of these options are overly, I know there's not a lot of support for some of these, but it's the reality as to where we are at. I would not recommend any of these if not for the situation we're in. So the first one I would like to put on the table is real estate taxes, increasing the real estate tax. For every penny increase on the tax rate, it yields 1.4, almost $1.5 million of revenues. So if you were to take a look at the average value home within the county, that's $380,000. So 1 penny on that per $100 assessed value is approximately $38 a year. If you want to use easy math, if you look at a $500,000 house, that's $50 a year, just to give you a ballpark.
But that only raises $1 million, 1.4 million.
Yes, sir. Yes. This is multiple steps.
And just so people understand, this $11.4 million hole that we're in as of in this presentation right now does not include anything for the Board of Education.
That's correct.
Does not include any steps or COLAs for county employees.
That's right.
Just so everybody understands where we are in this situation.
It does have the MOE for the school board.
I'm sorry?
That has MOE, but it doesn't
It
have
has
any
an
increases.
MOE.
It has an MOE.
For the school board,
Yes,
but not the.
we
yes.
level
Okay.
funded last year, and arguably, we could have funded less
Yes,
for that.
okay.
The other taxing option I would like to put on the table for consideration is increasing the income tax from 3% to 3.2%. This has a 2-year phase-in. Year 1 yields approximately $3.6 million, and year 2 yields, and then thereafter yields about $7.2 million. So these will be permanent fixtures or solutions. They will be part of the fiscal year, if approved, will be part of the 26 budget and thereafter. There are others that will be one-time. Next page. Local receipts also are, I would like to stress that, from my perspective anyway, that we need to align our fee structure with the cost of service, and I know there's some related policy issues relative to that, but fees really should equal the cost of providing that service. It's not part of the general taxing, so the fees are, again, important to capture those costs.
And we did that in my first term, had agencies evaluate the fees that they charge, analyze if it was covering the cost, and we did increase those fees. The issue is that they go up every year, but
Yes,
we
sir.
don't raise them every year. You know, especially in the last 3 years when we've had inflation of 4, 5, 6%.
Exactly.
You know, we haven't changed our fee structure to keep up with salaries and benefits and all those additional costs.
The model I like to put on the table is you get it done to everybody's satisfaction and liking. And whatever the general fund increases, but you have to increase the revenue side by that, because you know, once you put the health insurance, you put pension, which are all should be fee covered, right? That increment, whatever it is, 3%, 4%, that fee associated with it should increase by the same amount. Then that way, as President Hand said, you don't get behind, and then you don't have to make big adjustments. I always like, you know, then you don't get the sticker shock. You move incrementally to cover your expenses.
And what year was that, Bud?
Oh my gosh, it's been 4 years ago,
So
I
that was
guess we did that. It hadn't been done since COVID.
So you think about it, if you just say, you know, 4% a year, times 4% times 4 years, you're 16% behind on your revenues.
So maybe you could work on drafting up a formula that we could use through the budget process that would adjust those fees based on, you know, a set factors.
Yes, sir. Be happy to. But the
And we
first,
have to adopt that into a policy where that would,
Yeah.
those fees would automatically increase based on some indicator.
right. No, that's one of the recommendations, so I can tick that one off.
Beth wrote it down.
So we went through, we had a lot of good conversation relative to so we went through each department. The animal services, no changes have been recommended yet. CMR, impact, they're doing an analysis, so impact will be determined. Same with Parks and Recs, they're doing a analysis. Planning and zoning, they had done an analysis and made recommendations, and their net increases to $82,000. So you just think of a small department like that, $82,000. It's not going to, we're not going to balance the budget per se, but again, I think it's, you know, that incremental approach is important. Sheriff's Office, no changes recommended. Water and sewer and solid waste, as you know, we went through a fee analysis and just an internal analysis, and they're recommending the combination of both, about $2 million in fees.
And we get, every time we, you know, raise fees at Parks and Rec, we get complaints, you know, I pay my taxes, I shouldn't have to pay a fee, you know, but just so the public knows, these fees don't cover the cost of operating those parks. You know, generally those fees are specific to your time slot and whatever use you're doing at that facility.
Right.
You know, the parks are still general funded operations, and I always talk about the pool, the Hall Aquatic Center. You know, every year we lose over $500,000 in operation of that pool. And
That's
3 or
getting better.
4
It was 1.2.
3 or 4 years ago, we raised the fees like $2, and people screamed. They couldn't afford $2 more, and we're bleeding, you know, and, you know, there's general funds that go into those programs, but, you know, it doesn't feel right that people subsidize those programs and never use it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we're just trying to get a little extra out of those people that actually use those facilities to cover some of those costs. But at the end of the day, they're all being subsidized.
Yes, they
Well,
are.
just people get upset when I say this, but you know, if you remember when you were a kid, you had summer jobs. Well, minimum wage doesn't care what age you are, and minimum wage is now $15 an hour. Anybody ever ran a business knows it's not 15. There's other things with that as far as unemployment insurance, everything else that comes with that. Well, that summer job, that person that was cutting grass or cleaning the pool, if they were to work 40 hours a week without benefits, it's a $30,000 a year job. To try to put some perspective on it, and you're still trying to cover it with a $2 or $5, you know, charge to the public, when, you know, minimum wage not that long ago, remember that federal government, I believe, is still $7.35, I believe, or $7.50, somewhere in that range. It's just Maryland that's taking this approach. So not that long ago, just a few years ago, it was in the sevens, and it has jumped dramatically, and we have not moved to stay with that. And to Commissioner Hans's point, everybody knows the heat I take for champion the golf course, but I've tried to do everything I can to make that golf course pay for itself. Well, if I don't do a certain event or what a program, then there is going to be that pushback saying, hey, I don't do basket weaving 101, why am I paying for it? The people that do basket weaving, and to Commissioner Hans's point, I hear it constantly, well, my taxes pay that. To quote one of my predecessors, globally, when you look at it, we're not really covering a lot of times with our taxes. And that's what we're seeing today.
And Calvert County is no different than other jurisdictions.
Of course.
You know, the differences between core services versus, the expanded services are always discussed and how to pay for it, so. But I think setting those policies then provides the foundation from which we can work from. So, as you know, we've been talking about Chapter 86. Depending upon what pieces of that, if you will, are adopted and others not, but all in right now is about $1.7 million. That represents 10 months, assuming a 2-month implementation. The next. Yes, sir.
Director Miller, people don't know what Chapter 86 is unless you're working county government. So explain what Chapter 86 is.
Chapter 86 is the county's personnel ordinance that addresses personnel.
When you get overtime pay, when you get hazard pay,
Exactly.
when your holiday pay, all that kind of stuff.
All that kind of stuff.
So there are changes being made to the personnel policy that's going to impact when people get overtime, how much they get paid overtime, holiday pay, hazard pay, all those kinds of things are changing. And it's your estimation that there's going to be a net benefit to the county of almost $1.8 million.
Yes, sir.
Do you know how much of that is comp time?
I went to say 700,
Okay.
but
Ballpark, I'm fine with that, that's fine.
don't take it to the bank, but. All right, the next conversation I'd like to put on the table is calling due, if you will, the current water and sewer payable to the general fund. At one time, the water sewer had a payable where the general fund subsidized the water and sewer rates by a little over $8 million. Over the years, it was decided that that amount of money would be paid back over a 40-year period at $175 a year. The water sewer fund has sufficient fund balance to pay it, although by doing so, it will take it under the 180-day benchmark.
And once again, so people understand, the water and sewer program is supposed to be fully funded by the users.
Yes.
There's no general funds, no taxpayer dollars go into the water and sewer program.
Right.
All those people that use that program have to cover those costs. At some point in time, back in time, they didn't have enough money because their rates weren't high enough.
Correct.
And the county had to loan them general fund dollars. I don't know what it was, but they paid it down now where they owe us $5.4 million.
5.4, right.
But they have enough surplus funds, and because we need those monies, we're calling that note.
Yes, sir.
So they're gonna pay us back the
Yes.
money that we loaned them back in the day.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, that's my recommendation anyway.
Right.
So,
And hopefully, the new rate study, this won't happen again in the future. The rates will be set at a level that the county won't have to loan them money. They're
That's
gonna
right.
have sufficient funds.
and the reality is if there's another water main break or something like that, we will be, we'll provide that backup, if you will.
If they need it, but we're gonna charge them a lot
Yeah,
of
that's
interest. They're not going to borrow from us. We're gonna be like loan sharks.
All right, so those are the dollars that we can pull in the budget right now. What I would like to spend a little bit of time on is our recommendations and our thought processes that we can look at for 26 and beyond. And maybe we can put a stormwater tax on the list too for Mr. Hart.
He's ignoring you right now.
Yes, he is.
Don't push it, don't push it.
I won't.
You'll push him over the edge.
So the bridging strategies for 26 and beyond, some of these are maybe have a higher probability of success. The first is the emission amusement tax. There's a transfer tax that has been discussed. I did not put values on these because they haven't been totally vetted yet, but, for example, the transfer tax is we are looking at over $5 million. The vacant property tax, the public safety tax, telecommunications tax, long-term rental tax, short-term rental licenses, and long-term rental licenses. Again, looking at areas that we provide services for, i.e. the licenses, and other areas where we'll have to get legislation passed at Maryland, or I should say in Annapolis.
And because we're a commissioner form of government, we can't just implement taxes. Right now, the only authority we have is for property tax and income tax.
Right.
So any of these items on this list, we'd have to go to the legislature, which is why they are long-term strategies, because we can't implement them to help us in this current cycle.
Yes, sir.
But they are items that we can take under consideration, which we would include in our legislative package for next year.
Yes, sir.
And implement for '26.
Correct. So, moving, next slide.
Oh, and just for the record,
Yeah.
so people understand, public safety tax is commonly called a fire tax. Our neighbors in St. Mary's County have a fire tax. I can't think offhand right now who else in the state of Maryland, but
There are several counties, yeah.
it's a special tax that the Maryland legislature will allow you to collect, and those taxes are dedicated. They have to be used for fire or EMS services. They can't be used for anything else. And just to cut it off, people have screamed at us to have a school tax. The history is the state of Maryland will not allow a jurisdiction to have a school tax. Not going to happen in the state of Maryland. So it's just part of our budget.
And the nice thing about the public safety tax is that it can keep pace with the cost of service. All right, the one variable that we have not discussed, and which again I emphasize is not part of the budget, is the county COLA and STEP. So for each 1% COLA, cost of living adjustment, that would increase the budget by $764,000 for the general fund, and then all funds would be $970,000. All funds would include the enterprise fund, special revenues, et cetera. For STEP, that STEP would be on average $1.8 million, again, for the general fund, and for all funds, $2.3 million. Next slide, please. Again, point of emphasis, the remaining unknowns is the Board of Education. There is nothing for additional funding or anything for union negotiations. This is all general fund, governmental funds.
Bruce, if I could ask you, as of, because you hit that, as of this point today, we still don't have those numbers, is that correct?
I have not been provided any information.
So we do have, the superintendent was in here a couple months ago and did make a request for $10 million above MOE. But that request did not include any salary. There was no salary in that request because at that time they had not negotiated the contracts. It's my understanding they have an agreement on a teacher's contract. They do not have an agreement on support staff. I anticipate that Thursday night when the superintendent joins us at the public hearing, he's going to have an additional request to cover those union contracts. So our hole, just to keep reminding everybody, our hole is $11 million. The superintendent has asked for 10, that's 22. He's going to ask for another significant number on Thursday night. This hole is deep.
What is our MOE now for BOE?
147 or 151?
We gave them
152.
154, yeah.
Sorry, 154 million last year.
154 million.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, 'cause they paid for
And that's
Should we
just for their
explain
operating
MOE?
cost, that doesn't include the OPEB or debt service.
Right.
That's just straight
Okay.
operating.
What is OPEB for them?
Oh,
That shouldn't be very significant at all right now.
Well, I think we have in the budget 1.5, but that's not that's basically not what the actuarial would recommend.
Just a guesstimate.
It's, yeah,
Have we had his recommendation yet?
don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but we can get them.
I mean, at one time, we were very aggressively funding that, so I wouldn't expect it to be a lot.
Yeah, we did a good job in the past of getting those funded.
just so people hear us talk about MOE, MOE stands for Maintenance of Effort. There's a law in the state of Maryland that says once you fund the student cost of an education system, you can never give that system less. So if we gave them $154 million last year and student population stays level, we have to give them $154 million this year. There's no way to eliminate that. And if I'm going to dig into some history, in my 6 years, the first 3 years, we had a funding formula which had been set in place prior to my arrival, which was wonderful. It was determined on a formula of cost increase.
With
and-
CPI
And
and-
CPI and those things, and every year, the school system got a set amount of money based on the funding formula, and I don't think it was ever more than $3 million when I was in my first 3 years.
I remember there was a caveat in it. Once it got to a certain point, that money, I believe, boy, it either kicked back to OPEB or it
Yeah,
came.
if they had surplus.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was ever over 3 million in my
No,
first couple of years.
not that I can recall.
And everybody was fat and happy, and we
Yes.
never heard a peep out of anybody. 3 years ago, they came in, they asked for 9 million above MOE. We gave them 7. Last year, they asked for 24. We gave them 13. This year, they're gonna be close to 20, I think, when we're all said and done, for their ask.
Bless you.
And the reason we didn't renew the funding formula was because Blueprint was coming and we had no idea what those costs were gonna be, and it seemed like a waste of exercise to do a funding formula that's gonna give them $2 or $3 million when they're gonna need 24. So we eliminated the funding formula. Hopefully one day we can get back to that, but until
Well, my
Blueprint-
understanding is Blueprint is the law of the land. I would just like to know hard numbers. You would think a plan as aggressive as Blueprint is, the most aggressive I would think the state has ever seen. Maybe if I'm wrong, I apologize, but my understanding is the most aggressive they've ever seen. They've made it, there's 24 jurisdictions in the state. They've made everybody adhering to this is the new law of the land. You would think by now we would have hard numbers. You know, they started working on this a few years ago. You would think you would know, hey, in 2024, I'm paying this, and 25, I'm paying that. I mean, maybe not to the penny, but pretty darn close. And you just heard Commissioner Hance say that we've increased in 2 years, what, $20 million? And it sounds like we're still not there. I
And
mean,
just-
147 million's got to be the most that's ever been written.
The other thing is, you're gonna hear state leadership say that they have fully funded Blueprint. You're gonna hear them all say that. But
They took
look at the
22 million
chart.
from us.
Look at the chart that's on the state MSD website. Half of the counties in the state of Maryland are not getting 1 penny to support the Blueprint cost, including us.
We
Half
lost-
the counties in the state of Maryland are not getting 1 penny to implement Blueprint. So it's all on us.
So correct me if I'm wrong, and please, money gets sensitive. I believe they cut St. Mary's 24,000,
Because of student enrollment.
and then us 22 million.
22.5 million.
And that was the only 2 jurisdictions cut, correct, to my understanding, out of 24. So
But
why
that's not
out?
Blueprint related.
Our kids aren't as good? I mean, what?
So, you know why they cut
I know
us.
why.
Can I ask Administrator Willis, have they given, you're on the committee, have they given you any indication as to when the 24 jurisdictions will know a breakdown as to how much we're responsible for? Do we have certain dates that say at this time you are required to give thus and such? Do we have an amount for the total package or in part or whatever? I mean, it's such an unknown, the financial obligation that the jurisdictions are going to have.
Yes, ma'am, I think I can help out. Mark Willis, County Administrator. The Blueprint Committee, the mandate by state is to have that answer back to the state by July 1st. So there are other counties that have worked through that, and they have what they believe to be realistic numbers. I think our Blueprint Committee has those, or getting closer to those numbers as well, but we don't have them yet. What that will indicate is what we believe as a Board of Education in Calvert County that we would need to fulfill all the requirements that Blueprint provides. For example, payments to teachers when they meet certain milestones, as they raise up in educational levels, when they get certified at the national level, et cetera. So we don't have those numbers yet, but when it's, like I said, due July 1st.
Thank you. So for the public, you see what we're up against. We do not have the BOE's budget to date. We're getting close to where we have to present and file our budget, and then we still don't have numbers on Blueprint and what we additionally will be facing in the future.
True statement, ma'am. I will say that the Blueprint Committee, under Dr. Joe Sampson, I think they're trying to get there. They do have some of the preliminary numbers, but to wrap them up into one package, we're yet to be able to publish that.
Thank you.
So Bruce, earlier you said that you would not advise us using fund balance.
That's correct,
And
right.
then you gave us options with taxes and what have you. So your consideration is
Next page,
not
please.
using half and half, or,
This is my
okay?
funding formula, if you will.
He's gonna be fine.
I would like you to explain your philosophy behind that statement so that they understand it fully going into the decisions that they need to look at.
Well, I think we understand why the Director of Finance doesn't want us to dip into fund balance. It's a tricky slope that you get into when you start using fund balance to cover costs. But we're in a situation here where it's gonna take a little time to remedy, and I'm not sure we have the luxury of not. And that's what it's there for at the end of the day. But I think we understand the director's position that it's not a good strategy to dip into fund balance, but, it's called a rainy day fund for a reason, and, it's pouring.
I understand that.
I retract my comment.
Well,
So, and again, I mentioned it at the very, very beginning. My concern is that it's decreased in the amount it has over 3 years. And then the unknown is this year's 24's budget, what the revenue deficit will be. It could be up to $20 million, okay? So that's my hesitation. So we could be under $40 million. And even though we've told the rating agencies that we were going to have a 2-year plan, that's by using that fund balance, it's hard to get back over a period of time. So as much as we possibly can, if we have to dip into it, that's a policy decision. But as much as we can hold off on, I just recommend holding off on. Because another statement I made at the very, very beginning is I'm looking at this as a 2-year or 3-year bridging strategy. We're not going to be through this next year. We're going to be talking about the same things next year. So if we use fund balance this year, and we use fund balance next year, and heaven forbid we have to use it in year 3, that has significant ramifications.
No,
Okay.
and here's the worst part of that picture. So it was mentioned, the school system took a $22 million cut. They're gonna use their fund balance to cover that this year.
Mhm.
And just so everybody knows, that we heard that from Annapolis. They need to use their fund balance. So, everybody says, why are you making them? We heard that from Annapolis. They need to use their fund balance. They're gonna use their fund balance this year to cover that gap. If between now and next year, we don't get an agreement from the state to help recover that, or at least some of that, next year they're coming to us for $22 million just to cover the cut from last year, just so everybody knows what's coming next year. So next year, the school system will be asking for $22 million before they ask for anything to cover any additional costs.
Right.
So that's why this is as bad as it is
Right.
today.
So
Yes.
I guess I will say, Commissioner Hans said about raining and pouring is extremely accurate. When I came on, we had not done steps or COLAs for 5 years. We purchased nothing. If you bought a pencil, somebody said, where are you gonna take away from to buy the pencil? And the light of the tunnel was they were building Dominion. And we actually had a 6-year schedule of what we would receive. So we knew we could restore steps. We knew we could get OPEB accounts up, and that's what happened. Steps got restored. OPEB got funded at a rate to satisfy the actuary, to reduce the burden on days like today. Well, there's not a light this time. And now with increased cost of everything, Blueprint demands, my personal philosophy, and I go back to the only way I know how to do things, is if you use something, you're gonna have to pay for it. That's just my 20%. That's not a very popular thing. When you look at what a lot of jurisdictions you put on there, if you use this, there's a tax for this, or fee, or however you wanna call it, like a public safety thing or whatever. And I think we're gonna have to go back to that philosophy of, instead of charging 90,000 people for everything, you charge the people that use those services. It could possibly be the only fair way to do it. Somebody who's a senior is on a fixed income, probably isn't playing basketball, and to have them pay for it. You know, I've had people say to me so many times, I paid for my kids, I paid for my grandkids, why am I still paying for a school system? And we understand the power of what education means in society. But and like I say, this is all I've been able to think about for weeks. And you know, you and I've had a discussion, you're absolutely right. You can't do it in 1 year. It's gonna be a 2-year thing. It's probably gonna be a reduction in staffing, it could be a reduction in services, and it's really gonna be the county deciding on what it wants. You know, I travel a lot, and I sit there and people say, how come they have that and they have this and we don't have that? Well, they have 2 to 3 times the population. The taxes are higher. We were an all-volunteer EMTs just a few years ago, and now we're not. And these things all cost money, and there is no more priority that when you dial 911, someone has to be there, no matter what the cost is. I mean, there's not going to be a price on your life. So I don't know how to get around going forward addressing individual departments as such. Is it losing money? Is it a service that some can be recoverable? But I don't like a blanket tax. I never have. Just my 20%, and I don't know if touching PAYGO, I know it's not advisable. And I know fund balance, I was always taught, you can't use fund balance to pay a reoccurring debt. That is accurate, because you will run out of fund balance. But taking that approach that if the public truly wants a Taj Mahal of something, are you willing to pay for it? Anybody who says my taxes is covering everything, no one's paying that much taxes. You take the 2 energy facilities out of here, we're not even touching it. So no one's paying that much taxes to cover every facet of what we do. So, just my small piece on that.
So, thank you, sir. So, just to do a little bit of recap, right now, our total revenues are projected to be $364.6 million. Our projected expenditures are projected to be $376 million. So that yields a negative $11.5 million. So either A, we cut the budget, or B, and I think we've gone back and looked at all the cuts that we can and looked at all the potential revenues that we can, staffing-wise. So now the hard part is asking you all to provide recommendations to go from here. So one option on the table is to increase the real estate tax. And again, for each penny increase, that yields $1.4 million. This example provides a 4% increase, which yields $5.8 million. and that would impact the average homeowner by $152 a year. And again, that's on a $380,000 average home per ESTAT. The next recommendation is increase the income tax by 0.02, so it would increase from 3% up to 3.02. That would yield $3.6 million in year one, and because of the phase-in in year two, it would yield 7.2. So again, that would help offset the reduction of the water sewer payable if we go in that direction. But before I get there, again, local receipts, probably about $82,000. A little bit more now that other departments are providing fee increases, Chapter 86 increases, or decreases, I should say. Again, if everything is approved as presented, that equals $1.7 million. The note from the water sewer, again, that's $5.4 million. Add all that up, it sums up to $16.7 million. A decision that has to be made as of yet also is a COLA or a step increase. Another unknown, again, keep emphasizing, is Board of Education. This example has a 2% COLA provided or paid or beginning in January. Again, it's just for illustration purposes. So all that said and done, after the $11.5 million revenue deficit, plus the solutions that we just went through, minus the mid-year COLA at 2%, that yields or brings us up to 4.4 positive. But again, it has to be, we need to remember that 5.4 of that is a one-time revenue solution, which would automatically be reduced next year, if everything being equal, a reduction of $1 million. So again, that's why I'm recommending the 2% increase in income tax versus 1%, is to offset that reduction. So,
And that'll take us to our cap, right?
yes, sir.
The state allows 3.2, we're at 3.0, we go to 3.2.
Yes, sir.
And that's a 4-penny increase in property tax.
Yes, sir.
And just for all you out there that want to do math, if the school system needs $20 million, do some quick math. That's quadruple what he's got presented here today. That means everybody's property tax will go up $600. That's why we keep asking them for an audit. And why we keep asking them how they're spending their money. We can't sustain $20 million increases every year. Because I've had people tell me, I don't mind, raise my taxes $300 or $400 if it goes to schools. But when I explain to them, you got to do that every year for 3 or 4 years, then they gasp.
What I struggle with is enrollment's down, and I believe staffing numbers are down, but the costs are higher than I've ever seen. I'm missing something, I'm sure.
I digress. So anyway, you did good. You got yours in the black if we agreed to these taxes.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, you guys have the hard part. I came up with a roadmap, and
we've cut the last 2 years. We cut last year. We're gonna keep cutting. But I know nobody likes to have their taxes increased. I just don't see any way that we can't at least start. It's the only way we have to increase revenues. You know, we're government. That's how we operate. It's taxes.
So, Mr. President, when was the last time we did have a tax increase? What year
So-
was it?
8
What
years
year?
ago.
So that was 8 years ago? And
And it
then-
was for $8,000. They were bleeding $8 million a year, so it was increased just to $8 million to try to offset
They raise property and income,
just property
just
tax.
property,
Just property tax.
3 or
And
4
then-
cents.
I don't remember the
Much.
exact rate.
How much was it?
Commissioner, the property tax was raised by 1.5 cents on the dollar.
That
I mean, on the hundred.
Then we lowered it twice, but never back to the original rate.
Well, we came back later on and we reduced it by that same amount. Now, the property taxes were different because inflation, the value of properties were different. But it was 1.5 penny and then it went back. It gave that
Did we get to the
1.5 back.
1.5 back? I didn't think we
We
had
did
got-
it
I
in
thought
three,
Okay.
we did it in 3 years going in and 3 years going back out. A half a penny with each occasion.
And while we have you, Mark, can you explain why people listening, what we did and you did with the CIP, and just explain to everybody the process and what happened there?
So the magnitude at which the capital improvement project or the plan was increasing year after year was literally by the millions. And it was not a sustainable approach to really put in effect all the new improvements that were being requested, and not to mention that you have to keep in mind that a lot of the infrastructure that the Calvert County government is responsible for is existing infrastructure. It's a lot of road repair, it's a lot of infrastructure within the road network, within our technology network. So aside from that, it was really to push out the major projects that were impacting the budget and to allow for some breathing room on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners for years fiscal year 25 and 26. It was my recommendation on what we should push out, and it's a tough decision, but that's what we did. We cleaned up projects from everything from some school projects we moved out in coordination with the school system. We pushed out a lot of public works projects. We pushed out a lot of building projects in general, parks and recs projects, along with some of the industrial infrastructure like the sheriff's office that we're trying to pull in. We just pushed that out. We pushed out a couple of the fire departments, and we pushed out one of the community centers. And all of that was to get a better grip on the monies that are being spent so that we could move forward and have a balanced budget and really be in control of it instead of it in control of us. So that's a snapshot. I can mention more specific items if you want.
That's great, thank you.
I mean, I would like to say that I don't think folks realize that that when you go out here and you have a pipe repair on a road, it's not $10,000 to fix that pipe that might be 10 feet in the ground, 36 inches in diameter for a stretch of maybe 40 feet under that road. It's $1 million. It's $1.5 million. And it's the stormwater management that we do. We just had a presentation on the water quality in this county, and a lot of what we do on the infrastructure side along the road is to, one, make it safe for our citizens to drive across those roads, but it's also to account for the water quality that heads down to our waterways. And there's a couple folks in the room that I'm sure are paying special attention. And they want to make sure that we're following the rules. And those are state mandates that we do that. So it's very expensive to maintain the existing infrastructure, yet alone adding new infrastructure to it.
And it's COVID. You know, everybody says, well, COVID's over. COVID's over, but the impacts of COVID are not over. You know, increased cost, it's just ridiculous. And it's not coming down. You know, I look at these fire guys sitting there in the back. We bought a ladder truck for Dunkirk Fire Department 4 years ago. It was $1.5 million. Today, that same truck is $3 million. We used to buy ambulances for $200,000. Now they're $500,000. The stretcher that they put you on to put you in that ambulance start at $25,000 and up. I mean, it's just crazy. So everybody says, what happened? You know, what'd you do wrong? We didn't do anything wrong, but the costs have just gone crazy. And people say, my assessments have gone up. I'm paying more taxes. It ain't fast enough. And when the school system comes in and asks for $24 million, we can't.
And that number's gonna be much higher than that.
So when people say cut, well, we cut, well, we're gonna close parks, we're gonna close libraries, we have to hire EMS, we have to have police officers. I mean, if we cut, people aren't gonna like it. So as Commissioner Hart said earlier, people have to make a decision. You know, and I don't wanna raise taxes any more than anybody else, but there's just no other way forward. And, you know, you can point fingers all you want, but, this happened, I mean, it almost happened overnight, to be honest. I mean, because during COVID, we were getting ARPA funds. And depending on the strings connected with those ARPA funds, we could use those to fill gaps. We used them to pay for EMS when we had to fill those ambulances with paid career people. And now all that money's gone.
How many people
And it's
took
caught up.
PPP loans and put it in their pocket? How many people abused that COVID time? They were handing out money like candy. A small jurisdiction like this, Mark, what did we get back to back? Wasn't it like, I don't even want to throw a number. I think I know the number in my head. Do you remember what we got for during that time with COVID?
Revenue for us to
Mhm.
expend on behalf of ARPA funding.
Mhm.
The second round with ARPA was 19 million, just shy of 19
Aren't we
million.
the third smallest jurisdiction, something like that in this state?
Yes, sir.
Now imagine what Baltimore got, Montgomery County got. We, like Commissioner Hans said, we put it into EMTs, we put it into upgrading equipment, stuff that we could help us down the road. I mean, I would hope the other jurisdictions did that, but now the bills do. And the state of Maryland is, as you've seen with us, it's been very, very difficult. But in federally, the bill is due. I mean, and that's what, I mean, it's going to be, if you want to do something in life, it's going to cost more than it ever has, unfortunately.
So you have before you a recommendation that I think we need to take some action on.
Yes, sir.
You can adopt his proposal, you can reject his proposal, or you can increase his proposal. But I think we need direction before we go into the budget hearing on Thursday night.
So I do have one more question.
Sure, I'm sorry.
So what is option B? I'm hearing 10 million, I'm hearing 16 million, I'm hearing 20 million from the school board side. That's not going to cover what we have. So what is option B? I don't want to vote on this here and then have to come back
We don't know what their ask is yet.
with
because-
their ask. So have we thought about that, Bruce, or any thoughts on that?
They have $32 million worth of fund balance.
Okay.
I think that's your first.
Yeah, but they're
The
using 20
22
of it.
and the 10 puts
22
you
is
to
already gone.
32.
What's to prohibit them not using the entire 32? To say, you know what, we're going to fund everything that we want to fund and pull the full 32. Because, you know, if you assume they're just going to take 22 to just balance what they didn't get from the state, then do they go back and just grab the other 10? And then my question is, does that add to MOE? Does that instantly obligate us next year to that 10?
And that doesn't cover their contracts.
Because, you know, it's always been whatever the dollar amount went, you know, was the new number. So does that become, so if 147 was level funding, and they took 22 million to go back to 147, and they said, well, there's no more money coming out of the BOCC, we're gonna go back and grab that other 10, is now MOE 157.
So Commissioners, to answer your question, staff through the county attorney's office has already reached out at the state level to inquire about that very question, and we have yet to have a response back from them. And the idea is that the 22,000 or the 22 million or the 32 million that they have in fund balance, however they like to classify that, it is fund balance, and it is monies that they could use. The question would be the same whether they use 22 million of it or 32 million of it, and that we're still waiting on that.
And just so everybody understands, the school system accumulated their fund balance because of surplus funds. So we give them $150 million, they only spend 146, they would put 4 million in fund balance because we never swept their accounts back. The issue that we're discussing right now about MOE is if they use that fund balance to cover this cost, if the state adds that to their MOE, that puts us at 176. But our argument is that that fund balance was already accounted for in prior years. Whereas we gave them 150, they didn't spend it all. That's what MOE was at that time. So we've asked the state for a response, and that we don't believe that using fund balance should be counted towards MOE.
It's kind of like the make
And
as they
that's-
go. Remember the one year they said if you give $1 over,
That was in COVID.
we'll give 5 million extra. I mean, so when people say, how come you don't add this down to a science? It's changed 4 times just since I've been here.
And how can we make a decision without an answer from the state? Because if we make the wrong decision, we've screwed ourselves for years to come.
Well, regardless of their decision, we're still gonna have to take the action. There's no way to get around that. Whether they use fund balance or we give them money, if the state says, it all goes towards MOE, then that's what the state says, but we can't
That's going
not.
to be a high ticket. And also, when do we decide what our employees are going to get? If they're going to get a 1 or 2% COLA, are we going to give them mid-year step increases? Are we going to do it now? When do we make that decision? This minute?
Before you finalize the budget,
Okay. So we still have time?
have a little bit of time.
Okay, to reevaluate that. Okay.
But you don't have much time.
There's not much time at all.
June 5th?
June
June 4th.
June 4th, and we have to have,
You gotta print it,
we have to print it, exactly.
so you only have next week.
And when we
That's why I'm
go,
telling you, he's looking for direction.
I know, but,
Or I'm gonna make it up for you.
You
so,
can't do that.
direction by June 4th.
No.
No.
He's gotta print the book. The book's gotta be
gotta
printed.
be
The
made
budget's
public.
gotta be printed public June
By-
4th.
Right, so
June
back up.
4th.
He's gotta have it to the,
June 4th is your adoption date, sir.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
just
well,
the
it's
adoption date. Yeah,
then
we
you
don't,
print after that, and then it's gotta be ready by
July 1.
July 1. Sorry.
Okay,
July when?
June,
You had
You
me
don't
going.
present?
June 4th.
We,
Yeah, June
we
4th.
present the numbers, like if you make changes on the 4th and say, add this and add this, we present the numbers, but it's not in the full budget format until July 1st is the
Yeah.
Okay.
day we have to have it in public.
I mean, we can keep pushing, but a whole lot's not gonna change. Not for some of this. The BOE number's the only thing that's in jeopardy. I mean, we know what COLA's gonna cost.
Well, we know our side.
We know our side.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then what you're preparing for is what you're obligated to going forward on their side. Because ours is a little more controllable.
Okay.
So, go ahead,
Yes, sir.
Talking strategy a little bit here. Because we have to provide information to SDAT, I would like to have we have to have a public hearing on the tax rate, which we need to do prior to June 4th, so that we can,
That's not gonna work. Cause you have to advertise 2 weeks.
or on the 4th.
Or on the 4th,
Or
as long
on
as
the
we hold
4th.
the public hearing before you vote to adopt.
So what's 2 weeks before June 4th? Don't we have to advertise 2 weeks, Kelvin? 2 weeks or 10 days?
It's the 21st of May.
So that's next week. Isn't that what I said a little bit?
Yeah.
It's next week, you know.
I'll take care of
I mean, it's like kicking a can. Eventually you hit the wall and
A rebound.
the BOE hasn't helped us any because we don't know what that is, but
So, I guess there are a lot of unknowns as we've discussed, particularly the BOE budget. due to the fact that the contracts and negotiations aren't done on both sides, and we don't have that number. Said before, tax increase is something I don't think any of us want to do. We pay taxes here as well. Everybody here has grown accustomed to living in a county where we have multiple services. We live in the safest county in the state of Maryland. We have parks, we have trails, we have a lot of amenities a lot of other counties do not have. We're in a bad situation financially. We've talked about this for months and months now. Again, we can't point fingers at any one thing. I think we're in a bad situation as far as we've made a lot of changes. We now have paid fire and EMS. That absorbs a lot. It absorbs a lot to have the safest county in the state of Maryland through the sheriff's office. That's a huge part of our funding as well. The school board, as we discussed, we know the $22 million cut from the state. We know the $10 million ask. What we don't know is where our salaries are going to go. And again, that's not a one-time expense. I want to make a motion that we go along with.
Commissioner, this is just a work session. This is just for your consideration.
Okay.
The public hearing will be on Thursday.
Okay, can we give direction?
On, I would say.
But we don't have to do it through a motion?
Not at this point in time. This is no motion is required. This is strictly for a work session today.
Okay.
For your consideration, and any thoughts or what have you would be considered on Thursday, which is May the 16th, the public hearing. So no motion is required today.
Okay, so the direction that I would give you would be to continue with your plan, Bruce, your option here, and explore the 1% COLA added into that for county employees.
At the beginning of the year.
1% COLA.
And no steps?
No steps at this time. We can reevaluate the steps 6 months from now in January, or see where we're at.
Well, I think I guess that anything is possible with 3 votes. Typically, when we would do that, we would settle on the step would be effective now or do a mid-step. You would almost commit to it, but, what is those options, Bruce? I mean, is that just a
Can you
public
move that?
hearing that it takes to do that? Is that all? No, to make the decision on the steps.
Just a
Well,
budget
you can
adjustment.
You can
And
always
just a budget adjustment.
increase the budget.
We did that 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying
Made
to
those
remember.
adjustments in January.
So 1% COLA now and mid-year step. Is that what we're talking about?
To consider a mid-year step, I think is what he said.
Consider a mid-year step.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't want to get behind on steps, just being that I lived through that, and I know what the times are here, but that cost a lot of money, and a lot of time, and a lot of meetings, and a whole lot to get us back to even. And there's still people walking around that go, hey, I didn't get my steps or what have you. I mean, and I don't know if we look at the whole step evaluation of what a step value is to how many or whatever. I mean, that's a whole other discussion there, but that was a lot to overcome once we got that 5-year hole going. It threw off, there was guys that were working for 5 years and a guy walking off the street making the same money. And then you get back into retention and everything else like that. So I would like to stay clear of going backwards again on that. Just my piece.
So 1% COLA?
So are we okay with the having time to post it?
Having time to do.
Yeah,
For a public hearing.
for a public hearing? That's my concern.
So it's already been advertised
For the
as
public
his presentation.
For Thursday.
Right.
Okay, okay,
So right now, we're just nodding heads.
okay.
So I think some of us are nodding heads.
So COLA and step, or what are we,
So I thought I heard a 1% COLA and evaluate a step mid-year.
That's where I'm at.
And we do have some outstanding things that could be settled by, we're in an appeal process with Berkshire. It's not Dominion anymore, it's Berkshire. And that's the reason for the $5 million increase is because we In our first appeal, they did increase it by $400 million, which gave us another $5 million. The issue is we're just really far apart. So the next step in that process is I think we go to court.
Correct.
I don't know how long that process takes. I don't know if Pam knows or not. But anyway, the next step is to file a court appeal for the tax assessment. And, and everybody says, the 22 million was because the pilot expired.
It's not true.
The,
They say it, but that governor did not have to do that. Somebody in his staff educated him up to that. From 1600 on down, it was never pitched that way. And that's what, it's easy to want to point fingers. It was never pitched that way. There was jurisdictions didn't want it. It was said it was good for Southern Maryland. It was good for jobs for all over Southern Maryland. It was good for independent contractors working on it. It was pitched as completely a generator for money. And now everyone will say, well, somebody dropped the ball. They spent the surplus at the state, and they're going for every dime they can. And somebody on there said, hey, you know what? They're in the middle of these negotiations. Why don't you go ahead and run this wealth management formula or whatever they want to call it, and use that as an excuse to take $22 million from a school system. I mean, I don't care what to say.
So regardless of that side of the equation, the reason that we have not signed a new pilot with Berkshire is because we're too far apart on where our consultants say the assessment should be and where the state of Maryland says the assessment should be. And we don't want to sign a pilot right now and give away a lot of money.
And then penalize us for actually trying to do it properly.
Right.
And that's my big rub. Yep.
Because we are, if I'm going to go there, so our consultants have, the reason I say it's not Dominion anymore, Berkshire Hathaway, which is a subsidiary of Warren Buffett, everybody knows Mr. Buffett, purchased 100% interest in Dominion over the last 2 years. I'm not going to go to jail, I guess, and he paid over $8 billion for the. Keep me out of jail.
I don't know that the information you provided, is it public?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so, all right.
Yeah.
It's public
It's a public
information.
sale.
It's public information, it's public
Okay.
information.
I don't want to go to jail. I can't do time. Public information that we have is Mr. Buffett paid $8 billion for this facility. The state of Maryland says it's only worth 4.8. That's significant. That's half. So that's why we haven't signed a new pilot, because Berkshire would sign a pilot today based on the current assessment. But we've been holding out. And, I mean, it's affecting our budget process. We readily acknowledge that, but it's too much money not to at least make every effort we can to capture that revenue for the citizens of Calvert County. Because Commissioner Hart says, we took on that facility when nobody else wanted it.
Correct.
The people down there that live next door put up with some issues at certain times. And so it behooves us to make sure we get
And
as
a
much
person
revenue as
walked
we
in
can.
my store the other day and said, the county has a history of not knowing how to negotiate with these big entities. And I said, I was not here for that. I can't speak to that. I'm not going to ridicule anybody for that. So that's why due diligence was taken of hiring folks, consultants to assist us with this, to take your time with it. If you leave $1 million a year on the table over 10 years, that's $10 million. What are we talking about today? $11 million. I mean, you can't absorb the pension, the teacher pension shift. You can't absorb the losing the gas tax. You can't absorb all this. And then the one thing that the state of Maryland said, we did all this to you, but this is going to help make it right, and then turn around and drop the ball on that. It would be reckless and irresponsible to not try to get everything that the taxpayers deserve from that facility that they're due. And just like Commissioner Hand said, if I sold you a car for $100 and somebody said, well, it's only worth $50, well, it seems like to me it was worth $100 you paid for it. I mean, where's the direction from SDAT to step in and say, you're going to pay them this? That's what so you just take your time and try to do it right.
Comment on Commissioner Ireland's motion. I can go with the 1% COLA now, but I do want our employees to know that we sincerely, we are not just going to review and be talking. We're going to talk the talk and walk the walk. When we do a mid-year review, as long as all of this is squared away, you will get your step increases. And we don't want to see you all fall behind. You will get your step, but we're between a rock and a hard place now, and we're looking at it to even itself out so we can do that and give you your step increase. Are we in agreement?
Yes.
For
Okay.
for clarification, no motion is on the table.
No.
right?
Oh,
Just a
okay.
just a consensus.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
That was my fault.
Just,
It's an old habit. It's an old habit.
it's just a consensus.
Okay. I can agree to a consensus for what Commissioner Ireland said, as long as our employees know we are sincere in getting everything squared away and giving you your steps that you deserve.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
We see you Thursday night.
Yes.
So that brings us to public comment. Counselor,
Yes.
better today than Thursday night.
Yes. The board adopted a resolution in 1989 intending to maintain the order and decorum of the governmental process. A copy is found here to my right. Persons are welcome to address the Board of County Commissioners on any matter germane to the business of county government. Those addressing the board shall not be uncivil, rude, vulgar, profane, or otherwise disruptive to the conduct of the board's business. All speakers must identify themselves and whether speaking as an individual, where you will be allocated 2 minutes, or as the appointed spokesperson of a group, where you will be allocated 5 minutes. For those attending virtually, if you wish to speak, please press *9 or use the raise your hand function. The Ethics Commission has asked that we remind speakers at public comment that lobbyists include those who seek to influence public policy, and lobbyists must register in advance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Bob.
This is going to be better.
You can't get any worse.
I need to go to a little instruction.
Oh, okay.
So, these are all free. Not a dime of county money is spent on any of this.
That's good, we don't have a dime.
Thank you, Bob.
Did you say I'm not worth a dime?
The tabs that you see there?
You have to go to the microphone, people can't hear you.
Well, I know this is for you.
Oh,
This is your
okay.
instruction. As I'm going through, I'll be speaking to these sections, and you can keep up, that's why you have it there. Now I'll go and do the regular stuff that we're supposed to do. Trying to make it easy for you guys. Okay. Well, I already have to change my speech because I have good morning, Commissioners, so we're going to do good afternoon, Commissioners, and hi to Patty. And I'm going to not comment on that any further. My name is Bob Estes, and I'm representing the Friends of Hunting Creek. In fulfilling a promise I made to Commissioner Hance a while back, you have before you bound copies of the Friends of Hunting Creek 2023 Water Quality Monitoring Test Report, signed by the three authors, Ron Clauda, Mary Hoover, and myself. We had 22 sample sites in the non-tidal Hunting Creek watershed, which were used for collecting the data that's presented in this report. And that's just the Friends of Hunting Creek. We had many property owners, volunteers, organizations that helped us with our efforts, and they're acknowledged also in this report in Section 3. By the way, this year the broad efforts in southern Maryland resulted in 130 sampling sites in this past season. It's about 130, and those were collected, and that's expected to increase as we go along. The many property, let's go on to highlights, and this is going to be fast. I suggest that you get to page 2 as soon as you can there. The report summary
10 seconds,
is on,
Mr. Estes.
excuse me?
You had 10 seconds.
Oh, I'm representing.
got
Okay,
5 minutes.
you're
So I get
representing the
5,
Friends of
yeah.
Huntington. My
But that's good
apologies.
to know, because I'm speaking a little slower than I should. So anyway, the summary is on pages 2 through 5, and on page 2, you can see the extent of the 19,000-acre Hunting Creek watershed, along with the official and unofficial names for some of the tributaries. Section 2 is a brief summary of our accomplishments for 2021 through 2023. And Section 3, get to page 8 when you can, begins on page 8 and is a summary of our methods. On page 8, you can also see the locations of our test sites. The collection and initial preparation of the samples were per the Chesapeake Biological Lab and outside vendor established protocols. Chemical tests of the water samples for nitrogen and phosphorus compounds were performed by the Nutrient Analytical Services Laboratory at CBL. Turbidity was analyzed using a meter owned by ACLT. A table for the chemical and turbidity data can be found on page 62. We also tested for macroinvertebrates and environmental DNA in 4 sites. Macroinvertebrates are sometimes called the bugs in the mud, and the eDNA is a relatively new technique which can detect the creatures which live in the stream by the DNA they have left behind. It's pretty cool, huh? You see what fish are there without having to catch them. Sampling macros and DNA can be a useful tool for the assessment of the health of the water flowing through a given site. Section 4 contains the heart of the scientific results, and I suggest that you do to flip through that at your leisure, because there will be a quiz next week. So,
No doubt.
anyway, we have additional data in the on these in just what you need, another test, right? In Appendix C, D, and E. Now, this is going to be of interest to you. Go to page 72. I'd like to, which is also Appendix F. Well, one can easily see where the water, which will eventually empty into the Patuxent River, come from by using the map of the entire watershed. It's a little more tricky to easily see the water that flows through a given test site where it drains from. Well, this Appendix F contains all those details. The application called StreamStats, which I've become pretty good at, show the catchments for some of the test sites, and each test site's individual catchment is in Appendix F. So all those yellow pages that you see later. And by the way, if you want to know what comes past a certain site, give me a call. I'll get it to you in 10 minutes. Not a problem. It's not that hard. In the future, we intend to expand our efforts. We have just finished our 3rd quarterly testing in 6 key sites. Samples will be analyzed for pH, conductivity, dissolved oxygen, nitrogen, ammonium, turbidity, and total suspended solids. This is not an amateur operation.
Your time is up, Mr. Estes.
Can I have a closing 15 seconds?
Yes.
Thank
Yes,
you.
you may.
Well, we've not gathered a number of years' worth of data to make a statistically valid assessment of the health of Hunting Creek. We feel that so far, the data indicates the overall condition of non-tidal Hunting Creek is good. And if you have any questions, invite us back. We'll give you a little more information presentation, and just let us know. And the reports are available on ACLT. If anybody in the audience is interested in helping out in Friends of Hunting Creek, come find us also on ACLT. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work that the Friends do.
This is pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. It's very impressive.
It is.
Very nicely put together.
Thank you all.
Are there any more in the audience?
There is nobody on Zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that brings us to Commissioner reports. Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you all know, last week was Business Appreciation Week, and on Tuesday, we went to visit several businesses. On Thursday night, we ended up at Mully's with President Hance and Commissioner Ireland with a lot of the businesses that we met that week. On Friday, I attended Roush Funeral Home, who's been in business for 50 years, serving the citizens of Calvert County. On Saturday, went to Anne Marie Gardens along with Commissioner Grasso and Commissioner Hart. It was well attended for the rose wine ceremony and so forth. And on Sunday, tried to go to Mrs. Moo's, which was very well attended. I think everybody in Prince Frederick went to Mrs. Moo's or running hair on Sunday for Mother's Day, but it all went well. And then attended a golf outing yesterday for Calvert Health, and what a wonderful partnership we have with Calvert Health and all they do for the citizens of Calvert County. Thank you.
As
Commissioner Ireland.
I'm sorry. As Commissioner Cox said, Business Appreciation Week was a very busy week. Give a shout out Chesapeake Animal Clinic, Catholic Chartered Fishing, Eden Prescription, Interlude Pet Resort, Loving Care, Dawn's Early Light, and Wear Your Spirit all celebrated milestones, with the lowest being 15 years of business in the county. Molly's, the Chamber of Commerce event, was it was fun. It was well attended. We had the chamber members there. We had business members there. And we also had our economic development team there, and they did a great job putting the week together. Yesterday, I attended the ribbon cutting over at Southern Maryland Association of Realtors. They did a beautiful job redoing the building over there. There was representation there from all three counties. They're extremely happy with their new facility. You get a chance, you should take a look at it. I want to thank the Calvert County Warden Association for reaching out to fisheries in Annapolis to assist with changing a law we discussed earlier. To help remove remove a restriction that'll help remove a lot of blue catfish from the Chesapeake Bay. Again, I was happy I didn't get in trouble. You know?
Sometimes it needs to
I didn't want Marty to have to put
get
my
out of
picture
jail
on the
free
card. But anyhow, now the only other thing I want to encourage Dr. Townsend and the Board of Education to get these contracts settled so we can have a budget from them, a completed budget from them. That's all I have.
Commissioner Hart?
This Business Appreciation Week was probably one of the better ones because, especially after COVID, you're trying to figure out what's real. You know, before COVID, it seemed like the world made a little bit more sense. Afterwards, I don't know how anybody's making a living because everybody you talk to says they can't find anybody to work. So I don't know how people are making a living, but your dollar is so impactful at small business. It seems insignificant. I had a boss teach me one time, I did everything wrong you could ever do working at that job. And I remember saying to him one time I was getting hollered at by an owner because I had missed something. And I thought it was so insignificant. And he said, you know, you think that's such a small thing, but you know, they are going there 52 times a year for that. That's 52 times that person walks in there for that, and you missed it. And that's why he's upset, because that one person went there every week and represents that. You know, if there's a restaurant you go to once a week, you're so valuable because you're there 52 times. You're paying somebody's salary, you're paying somebody's rent, and they need you. They really need you. I mean, it's not, you hear small business, they need you, trust me. So that was, I want to thank Julie and her department over there for lining these up. The Rose event down Anne Marie Gardens, I think did pretty well. I haven't heard everything yet, but Anne Marie Gardens doesn't run just by itself. It takes you going in there, and it's a beautiful place. It's a treasure that we don't want to lose. So when you attend those events, whether it's Art Fest or Lights in the Garden, you're really helping keeping a nice fixture here that is good for everybody in all ages. And so I hope I'm not missing anything. So thank you, Mr. President.
Commissioner Grasso.
Okay, well, I wasn't here for the Business Appreciation Week, but Saturday the 11th, I hit the ground running, went to Anne Marie Garden Rosé Soiree, and was well attended, over 1,000 people. They were hoping 2,000, but I think every year they'll just get better and better. It was very well done. After that, I went over to appeal to a 89th birthday party for Miss Louise Gray, and her family did a wonderful job. I read a proclamation. They were very friendly and welcoming, and had a good time there. And while I was waiting for my husband to pick me up, I was still at appeal and sat down and met with Miss Mina Dorsey, and she told me about the mentoring program that is being offering in the county through Parks and Rec. And they have 6 mentors so far. May 23rd is going to be an open house. They're going to familiarize people with this program, assign some teens to mentors. And I spoke with Bob this morning, and he said they received a grant, and Brenda DiCarlo is heading that up for us. And then Mina was just lovely. She was very nice to talk to, and we just sat there and chatted. And another citizen in the county, he was at the recycling facility in Sunderland. And when he was throwing his trash in, and this gentleman in his 80s as well, his phone fell into the trash bin. And James Gray called Lennox, and he contacted Ken at Appeal. Ken came to the dump, and he and James went through the trash and found his phone. And this senior citizen was forever grateful. He said they were so respectful and kind to him, and he's going to be writing a letter stating the same. So our employees never stop working.
Very good. Thank you. So, as was mentioned, last week was Business Appreciation Week. I want to thank Director Oberg and her team for setting up all those visits that we all attended throughout the week. And the one thing that stuck in my mind from my visits was there's a company in Dunkirk called Victor Stanley. It's been in business since 1965 that makes park equipment, trash cans, the metal trash cans and benches. They have technology now that you can put on the trash cans that tells when it's full or when it's getting close to full. They said that Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania bought cans from them, implemented the technology, saved $1 million the first year because they spent less time going around checking the trash cans to see if they needed to be dumped.
That's cool.
They also said that technology will track people if you wanted to, and that they can collect all kinds of data from what's going on around the trash cans. Not that we're going to do that in Gower County, but I just thought that was really interesting.
There's a whole road you could go down with that.
Yes. But a great business, been here, like I said, since the mid-'60s. Their business plan is to double every 5 years. So it's a great business to have in Coward County. On Friday night, I was the quiz master at the library event at the fairgrounds, which is a trivia event. Had a great time. They had a good crowd again, and it's always interesting. Thank God I don't have to know the answers, but we did have a good time. And also, just a reminder, it's National Police Week. Thank a police officer if you run into them, because we live in a safe county for a reason. And it's also EMS Appreciation Week, so thank those individuals. Hopefully you don't bump into them, but because generally you only call them when you really need them. And a reminder that today is primary election day. Do not forget to vote if you have not voted. Thursday night at 7 p.m., our public hearing is going to be right here. And just another comment, I've been here 6 years, and last week we voted to create a child safety school work group. And in my 6 years, I haven't gotten so many comments from total strangers since I've been out in public as I have about the creation of that work group.
It's all over social media.
Yes.
It's all over social media. I mean, hundreds of comments.
People I don't know, they just walk up and say thank you.
See, it's all been positive about that I've read.
So it's just been interesting, because you wonder how much people pay attention to what we do at the end of the day.
I've heard we cure
Well, it's-
insomnia.
It definitely got a lot of attention. I mean, and it's parents, it's teachers, it's
Yeah.
students, it's everybody. It's
Yeah.
across the board that are thankful for
Well,
it. so.
I mean, we, like I say, except for Commissioner Grasso, we all graduated from Calvert. And I never, ever thought I'd hear a time that locking the bathrooms is a solution? Come on.
So anyway,
It's gotta change.
just a comment.
You want a motion?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay. I move that we adjourn to closed session pursuant to
This is Julie.
3-305B3 to consider the acquisition of real property for a public purpose and matters directly related thereto.
Second. I have a motion and a second that we move into executive session. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Everyone have a great day.
You guys hang in there, okay?
Thank you, sir. Yeah.